The mud hit her face before the insult did. Sarah Brennan, 54 years old, gray hair plastered to her skull, tasted gravel and blood as four men stood over her laughing. "Old lady, you're done!" Jake Daniels shouted, his boot inches from her ribs. They thought she was just another washed-up consultant playing soldier. They had no idea they'd just assaulted a woman who'd spent 28 years as a Navy SEAL, who'd survived 3 combat tours and 47 confirmed kills, who'd made a promise to a dead hero to end men exactly like them. Sarah stayed down, not because she couldn't rise, because she was counting their mistakes. Before we begin, if you enjoy stories of justice, resilience, and people who refuse to stay down, subscribe to our channel and hit that notification bell. Stay until the very end to see how this unfolds, and comment your city below so I can see how far this story travels. Now let's get into it. The taste of blood mixed with Virginia clay created a metallic paste in Sarah's mouth. She didn't move, didn't flinch. Just listen to the 4 voices above her blend into one chorus of arrogance. "Maybe we should get her a walker for the next exercise," Connor Hayes said, and the others erupted in laughter. "Nah, send her to the nursing home," Tyler Brooks added. "This is a young man's world, Grandma." Sarah's fingers dug into the mud beneath her. Not from pain, though her ribs screamed where she'd landed, but from the tactical breathing pattern she'd learned 26 years ago in a California surf zone. 4 counts in. 4 counts hold. 4 counts out. 4 counts hold. The rhythm that steadied your heart before the trigger squeeze, before the breach, before the violence that competence makes look easy. "You think she's gonna cry?" Marcus Chen asked, his voice carrying less enthusiasm than the others, but still present, still complicit. Jake Daniels, the ringleader, crouched down beside her. 29 years old. Built like someone who spent more time in mirrors than in actual combat. "Hey, old lady, you done playing soldier? Because I got real work to do, and babysitting consultants wasn't in my job description." Sarah lifted her head slowly. Mud streaked her cheek like war paint applied by careless hands. She met his eyes, his young, stupid, confident eyes, and said nothing. Just looked at him, the way she'd looked at targets through a scope. The way you look at something that doesn't know it's already over. Something in her silence made him uncomfortable. He stood abruptly. "Get up. You're wasting everyone's time." She rose, slowly, deliberately. One knee soaked dark with muddy water, shoulder already blooming purple beneath her contractor fatigues, blood mixing with dirt on palms torn by gravel. But her back was straight, shoulders level. Feet planted shoulder-width apart with the kind of balance that doesn't come from gym memberships, the kind that comes from carrying wounded teammates across hostile ground. "That's it for today," Jake announced to the gathered trainees, 22 men and 2 women watching from a safe distance. "Dismissed. Except you." He pointed at Sarah. "You stay. We need to have a conversation about whether you're cut out for this program." The trainees dispersed quickly. Nobody met Sarah's eyes. Nobody offered help. The 2 women, Jessica Parks and Linda Martinez, looked back once their faces tight with something Sarah recognized. Fear. The kind that lives in your stomach when you know you're next. When the trainees were gone, Jake's demeanor shifted. The performative cruelty dropped away, replaced by something colder, more calculated. "You don't belong here," he said quietly. "I don't know what strings you pulled to get into this program, but Blackstone Maritime Security isn't a retirement home for washed-up military consultants. We train real operators here." "I haven't washed up yet," Sarah said. Her voice was steady, calm, the kind of calm that makes smart people nervous. Jake wasn't smart. "You're 54 years old," he said. "You can barely keep up with the runs. You're a liability in team exercises. And today, you face-planted in mud because you don't have the core strength to handle basic tactical movement. Tell me one good reason why I shouldn't kick you out right now." Sarah could think of several reasons, because she was a Navy SEAL with more combat experience than all 4 instructors combined. Because she was here on a federal investigation into systematic abuse. Because she'd survived worse than anything Jake Daniels could imagine, in his safest nightmares. Instead, she said, "I signed a contract. 8 weeks of training. I've completed 3 days. I intend to finish." Connor Hayes laughed. "Intend, lady, intention doesn't mean shit when your body can't cash the checks your ego writes." "My body's fine," Sarah said. "Yeah." Connor stepped closer. 6'2", 210 pounds, 20 years younger than her. "Prove it. You and me, hand-to-hand drill. Right now. You'll last 3 minutes without tapping out. Maybe you've earned the right to stay." This was a trap. Sarah knew it. This was how they broke the women here. Public humiliation disguised as training. She documented it in her hidden journal last night after lights out 7 instances of instructors forcing female trainees into unwinnable combat scenarios, then using their failure as justification for harassment. But if she refused, she'd be dismissed. Mission over. The evidence she'd been sent to gather would remain buried. "Okay," Sarah said. Connor grinned. "Jake, you want to ref this?" Jake nodded. "Keep it clean. No strikes to the head. Submission or tap out only. 3-minute round." They formed a loose circle, Jake, Tyler, and Marcus creating a ring around Sarah and Connor. No witnesses, no cameras. Just the 5 of them in a mud-soaked training yard 40 yards from the main facility. Connor rolled his shoulders, cracked his neck. "Nothing personal, Grandma, just business." Sarah said nothing. She dropped into a neutral stance. Hands up, weight balanced, knees slightly bent. Her left knee throbbed where it had slammed into gravel earlier. Her ribs ached with every breath. The concussion symptoms from hitting the ground were starting to manifest, slight tunnel vision ringing in her ears. She'd fought with worse. Jake called time. Connor came in fast. Too fast. Amateur mistake, burning energy on intimidation instead of strategy. He shot for a double-leg takedown, trying to use his size and strength to overwhelm her immediately. Sarah's muscle memory screamed at her to counter with a guillotine choke, to sprawl and sink the hold and put him unconscious in 15 seconds. To show them exactly what a Navy SEAL looked like when patience ran out. Instead, she defended poorly. Let him complete the takedown. Crashed to the ground with his weight on top of her. 210 pounds of muscle driving the air from her lungs. "1 minute down," Jake shouted. Connor worked for a submission, tried to isolate her arm for a Kimura lock. Sarah defended just competently enough to avoid suspicion using basic Brazilian jiu-jitsu fundamentals that any civilian with a few years of training might know, but not the advanced techniques that would reveal her SEAL combative's background. He transitioned to her back, sank in a rear naked choke. Not deep enough she could breathe barely, but enough to make the point. She tapped his arm twice. Submission. Connor released her immediately and stood offering a hand up. She ignored it, pushed herself to her feet, mud-soaked, gasping, humiliated. 2 minutes 40 seconds, Jake announced. "Close but no cigar. You're tough, I'll give you that, but tough doesn't mean qualified." "I'm not quitting," Sarah said. Tyler Brooks stepped forward. "Then maybe we need to make it crystal clear what happens to people who don't belong here." Connor run it again. Same rules. This wasn't training anymore. This was punishment. This was what they did to people who refused to break the first time. "I already lost," Sarah said. "I tapped." "Yeah, but I don't think you learned the lesson," Tyler said. "So we're going to teach it again." Jake didn't object. Marcus looked uncomfortable but stayed silent. Connor cracked his knuckles. "Come on, old lady," Connor said. "Round 2. Let's see if you've got any quit in you." Sarah's hands curled into fists. Every instinct screamed at her to end this, to show them what a 54-year-old woman with 47 combat kills looked like when civility ended, to put Connor on the ground so hard he'd taste mud for a week. But the mission required patience, required sacrifice, required taking the beating so the evidence would be undeniable when federal agents arrived. She nodded once, dropped back into stance. This time, Connor didn't wait for Jake to call time. He just attacked. 3 days earlier, the office overlooked San Diego Harbor. Through floor-to-ceiling windows, Sarah could see the Pacific stretching toward a horizon where November fog met gray water. Naval Special Warfare Command headquarters rose like a monument to controlled violence beside the sea. Captain Ellen Morrison sat across the desk from her. 56 years old, silver eagles on her collar, 2 decades of service etched into the lines around her eyes. Covert investigation, Morrison said, sliding a folder across the polished surface. Blackstone Maritime Security, Chesapeake Bay, Virginia. Former SEAL contractor training facility. 2 female trainees quit in 4 months. Both filed harassment complaints. Both were dismissed by company management as failures to adapt. Sarah opened the folder. 2 photographs stared back at her. Young faces, determined eyes in the intake photos. Something dimmed and broken in the exit interviews. What changed? Sarah asked. Everything, Morrison said. Look at the timeline. Jessica Parks, 23, former Army MP. Quit after month 2. Cited hostile environment. Linda Martinez, 25, Marine Corps veteran. Quit after month 3. Reported physical intimidation and sexual harassment. Company investigating officer determined insufficient evidence both times. Company investigating officer, Sarah repeated. Not federal. Blackstone's a civilian contractor. Military doesn't have direct jurisdiction. But Jessica Parks sent an email to NavSpec War 3 weeks ago. Subject line made my blood run cold. Morrison turned her laptop toward Sarah. The email was short. Abu Ghraib culture civilian side. They're doing to women what was done at detention facilities, systematic abuse, institutional protection, retaliation against witnesses. Someone needs to stop them, someone who understands how perpetrators think, someone military. Sarah's jaw tightened. Abu Ghraib, the Army shame. The detention facility where prisoners were tortured while officers looked away. The institutional rot that took decades to excise. Who runs Blackstone? Sarah asked. Admiral Richard Thornton, retired SEAL, built the company after his 2015 retirement. Uses Navy contacts and his reputation to secure government contracts. 4 instructors on staff, all former military with less than stellar records. Morrison pulled up 4 personnel files. Jake Daniels, 29. Failed Army Ranger selection twice. Psychological evaluation noted. Authority issues and aggression toward female personnel. Hired at Blackstone immediately after his uncle Admiral Thornton founded the company. Connor Hayes, 27. Dishonorably discharged from Marines for assault. Plea deal reduced it to general discharge. 3 documented anger management incidents. No one else would hire him. Tyler Brooks, 26. Navy dropout. Failed buds in week 3. Bitter about SEAL washout status. Uses position at Blackstone to punish trainees for his own failures. Marcus Chen, 32. Former Coast Guard. Clean record, but complicit through silence. Multiple witnesses place him at harassment incidents. Never reported. Never intervened. Your mission, Morrison said, is to go undercover as a civilian security consultant enrolling in Blackstone's 8-week tactical operations program. Document the culture. Find the evidence. Build a case strong enough to break through the company's legal protections and Thornton's political connections. Rules of engagement, Sarah asked. Maintain cover at all costs. No backup. No extraction. You're completely alone out there. If you're compromised, we can't acknowledge NavSpec War involvement until the investigation concludes. You'll have a sat phone for emergency contact only. Everything else, evidence gathering, witness statements, documentation, you handle solo. Sarah nodded slowly. What happens if I find evidence of ongoing abuse? Document it. Don't intervene unless someone's life is in immediate danger. I know that's hard, Sarah. I know your instinct is to protect. But if you blow your cover too early, everyone at that facility remains at risk. We need systematic evidence. Pattern proof. The kind of documentation that destroys the protective infrastructure Thornton's built. And if things escalate beyond documentation, Morrison's expression hardened. Then you use your judgment. You're a combat veteran. You've made life and death decisions in fractions of seconds. I trust you to know the difference between necessary patience and unconscionable inaction. Sarah closed the folder, looked at Morrison. Why me? Because Master Chief Rebecca Davidson was your mentor. Because Hawk died fighting this exact battle 3 years ago. Because you understand institutional abuse from the inside. And because you're the only operator I know who'd survive 8 weeks in that environment without breaking cover or breaking someone's neck. Rebecca Davidson. Hawk. The first female Navy SEAL. Sarah's instructor during BUDS in 1998. The woman who'd pulled her aside during Hell Week when 47 male candidates were actively trying to force her to quit. "They want you gone," Hawk had said, her voice cutting through the Pacific cold and the screaming instructors. "Not because you're weak, because your evidence they're wrong. Show them. 2 words, that's all that matters. Show them." Sarah had shown them. Made it through buds when everyone expected her to fail. Earned her trident. Deployed to Iraq and Afghanistan and classified theaters where mission reports stayed buried in vaults. Became Ghost, the call sign given after Kandahar after she'd taken a round through the left forearm and kept firing for 40 minutes to cover a Marine platoon's extraction. 47 confirmed kills across 7 combat theaters. But Hawk hadn't survived. Not combat, she'd survived that for 22 years. She hadn't survived the institutional betrayal. The order to cover up sexual assault at a training command where she was senior enlisted advisor. The choice between her conscience and her career. She'd chosen conscience, tried to protect a female cadet, got ordered to stand down by her commanding officer, a man more concerned with the Navy's reputation than with justice. 3 weeks later, Master Chief Rebecca Davidson ate her service pistol in her quarters at Naval Station Norfolk. The note she left said, "I survived enemy fire but couldn't survive our own institution. If you're reading this, I lost. Don't let the next generation lose too." Sarah had been stateside when she heard, had flown to Norfolk for the funeral, had stood at Arlington National Cemetery while they folded the flag and played taps and buried the woman who'd taught her what a SEAL really was. At the graveside, she'd made a promise, a quiet promise to a dead hero. "I won't let them bury the next generation. I won't let them hide the abuse. I'll fight the system that killed you. I promise." Now Morrison was offering her the chance to keep that promise. "When do I leave?" Sarah asked. "Tonight. You'll fly into Norfolk Drive to Chesapeake Bay. Blackstone intake is Monday morning. You have 48 hours to establish your cover identity. Memorize your background. Become someone else." Morrison handed her a second folder. Civilian identification, employment history, a backstory crafted to be boring and believable. Sarah Brennan, 54 years old, former defense contractor logistics consultant, 20 years in corporate security, recently widowed, looking for second career in tactical operations, no military background, Terry. No special training, just a civilian with money and misplaced confidence. It was perfect. Exactly the kind of person instructors like Jake Daniels would target. Exactly the kind of woman they'd try to break. "One more thing," Morrison said. "Admiral Thornton served in the same SEAL teams as you did in the early 2000s. You were both in Iraq during the same rotation. You might know him." Sarah's expression didn't change. "I know him." "Will that be a problem?" "He won't recognize me. Last time Thornton saw me, I was 31 years old with dark hair and a sniper rifle. Now I'm 54 with gray hair and civilian clothes. People see what they expect to see. He'll expect a consultant. That's what he'll see." Morrison stood, extended her hand. Hawk would be proud. Sarah took the hand, shook once. Hawk would be furious that this is still necessary, but yeah, she'd approve of burning it down. "Don't burn it down, Sarah. Build the case. Do it right. Make it stick." "That's the plan." Sarah left Morrison's office, walked through Naval Special Warfare Command headquarters one last time, past photographs of SEAL teams past and present, past the memorial wall with names of operators who'd died in service, past Master Chief Rebecca Davidson's photograph younger than Sarah remembered, smiling in dress blues, eyes bright with the confidence of someone who didn't yet know the institution would kill her. She stopped, looked at that photograph. "I'm going in, Hawk," she whispered. "I'll document everything, gather evidence, build the case. And when it's done, when the abusers are in federal prison and the victims have justice, I'll come back here. I'll tell you it's finished. That's my promise." The photograph didn't answer. Dead heroes never do. But Sarah felt the weight of the promise settle into her bones. The kind of weight that doesn't come off until the mission's complete. She walked out of headquarters, got into her rental car, Drove toward the airport in Virginia and 8 weeks of systematic abuse she'd have to endure without breaking. Because that's what the mission required. Because Hawk deserved justice. Because the next generation deserved better than what killed her mentor. Present day. Training yard. Connor's second takedown was harder than the first. Faster. Meaner. He drove Sarah into the mud with enough force to crack ribs. This time when he secured the choke, he squeezed tighter. Long enough that spots danced in her vision. Long enough that she tapped 3 times frantically before he released. She gasped. Rolled onto her side. Mud and blood and saliva mixing in a paste that made breathing difficult. 3 minutes exactly, Jake said. Impressive. Most people would have quit by now. Sarah pushed herself to her knees. The world tilted sideways. Concussion definitely confirmed. But she stayed upright through sheer stubbornness. I'm not quitting, she said between gasps. Tyler laughed. Then you're stupider than you look. Marcus finally spoke. His voice was quiet, uncomfortable. Jake, maybe that's enough for today. She's hurt. She can speak for herself, Jake said. Can't you, Sarah? You want to stop? Say the word. We'll process your withdrawal paperwork tonight. You can be on a plane home tomorrow morning. This was the moment. The choice every victim faced. Endure the abuse or walk away. Accept the humiliation or preserve your dignity. Sarah knew what Jessica Parks had chosen. What Linda Martinez had chosen. What 7 other women before them had chosen. They'd walked away, taken the settlements, signed the NDAs, let the abuse continue for the next victim because fighting it seemed impossible. She understood that choice, didn't judge it. Survival isn't cowardice. But Sarah wasn't here to survive. She was here to end it. No, she said. I'm not quitting. I'm finishing the program. Jake studied her for a long moment. Something like respect flickered across his face, quickly suppressed. All right, he finally said. Your funeral. Connor, help her up. This time, when Connor offered his hand, Sarah took it. He pulled her to her feet with surprising gentleness. You're tough, he said quietly. I'll give you that. But tough isn't enough here. This isn't a game. People get hurt in this training. People who are younger and stronger than you. Think about that. I have, Sarah said. The instructors walked away, left her standing alone in the mud, watching them disappear into the facility's main building where witnesses and cameras and accountability existed. Out here, there was nothing. No protection, no oversight, just whatever they decided to do to people who refused to break. Sarah limped toward the barracks. Every step sent pain shooting through her knee. Her ribs screamed with each breath. The concussion made the world shimmer at the edges. But her mind was clear, clinical, already cataloging everything. Assault incident number 1, Jake Daniels forcibly pushed me into mud during tactical movement exercise. Witnesses, 22 trainees. Time 13:47 hours. Assault incident number 2, Connor Hayes excessive force during hand-to-hand combat drill. Witness Jake Daniels. Tyler Brooks. Marcus Chen. Time 14:05 hours. Assault incident number 3. Connor Hayes repeated combat drill after submission exceeded training parameters. Same witnesses. Time 14:12 hours. 3 incidents. 3 hours. Day 3 of 8 weeks. The pattern was already clear. So, barracks. 1800 hours. Sarah sat on her bunk in the women's section of the trainee barracks. The facility had 30 beds, 28 occupied by men, 2 by women. Jessica Parks and Linda Martinez had bunks on opposite ends of the room. Deliberate isolation, standard abuse tactic. Sarah's bunk was between them. Also deliberate positioning the oldest, weakest-looking trainee as a buffer, making the women feel even more separated from the group. She'd photographed her injuries using the camera hidden in her watch. Bruises blooming purple across ribs and shoulder. Torn skin on palms. Swelling in her left knee that suggested meniscus damage. The evidence was mounting. A knock on the doorframe made her look up. Jessica Parks stood there, 23 years old, blonde hair pulled back, eyes carrying the particular haunted quality that came from knowing exactly what was coming and having no power to stop it. "Can I come in?" Jessica asked quietly. Sarah nodded. Jessica sat on the edge of the bunk, didn't speak immediately, just looked at the floor the way people do when they're gathering courage. "I saw what they did to you," she finally said. "I'm sorry." "Not your fault," Sarah replied. "It's going to get worse. You know that, right? You stood up to them, refused to quit. That's when they really start breaking you." "What did they do to you?" Jessica's hands twisted together. "Small things at first. Comments during training, adjustments to my equipment that made exercises harder, adding weight to my pack, giving me defective gear. Then it escalated, extra PT sessions, corrective training that was really just punishment. Connor," her voice caught. "Connor likes to demonstrate combat techniques on women, calls it educational. It's not. It's assault. Did you file a complaint?" "Yeah, to the company. They assigned Jake to investigate. You know the nephew of the guy who owns Blackstone. Guess what conclusion he reached? Insufficient evidence." "Exactly. Said I was too sensitive for tactical operations. Said maybe I should consider a different career path. Said if I kept complaining, I'd develop a reputation as a problem trainee and no one would hire me." Jessica's eyes met Sarah's. "I quit the next week, signed the NDA, took the settlement money, told myself it was smart. Told myself survival was more important than justice." "Why are you telling me this?" "Because you're going to quit too. Everyone does. And I want you to know it's not weakness. It's just reality. This place breaks people. That's what it's designed to do." Sarah studied the young woman carefully, saw the trauma, saw the guilt, saw the desperate hope that maybe somehow someone would be strong enough to fight what she couldn't. "I'm not quitting, Jessica," Sarah said. "That's what I said. That's what Linda said. We both quit." "What changed your mind about leaving?" Jessica pulled up her sleeve. Bruises covered her forearm. Fresh ones, purple and yellow. The distinctive oval shapes of fingerprints. "2 days ago," she said quietly, "Connor grabbed me during close quarters combat training. Squeezed hard enough to leave these. Whispered that if I kept complaining, the next bruises would be somewhere people couldn't see them. So I'm leaving at the end of this week, before the wilderness survival training next month." Wilderness survival training. Sarah's tactical mind immediately flagged this. Isolated location. No witnesses. Perfect opportunity for escalated abuse. 48 hours in the woods. No cell service. Instructors have full authority. Linda went through it last cycle. She won't talk about what happened out there, but she came back different. Broken. Quit 3 days later. Sarah's hands curled into fists. This was bigger than individual harassment. This was systematic, structured. A culture of abuse with institutional protection. This was exactly what Master Chief Hawk had tried to expose. What got her killed? "Listen to me carefully," Sarah said. "I need you to trust me. Can you do that?" Jessica hesitated. "I don't know you." "No, but you sent an email to Naval Special Warfare Command 3 weeks ago. Subject line Abu Ghraib culture civilian side." Jessica's face went white. "How do you know about that?" "Because I'm the someone they sent. I'm not a consultant, Jessica. I'm here to document everything. Build evidence. Burn this place to the ground the right way, through federal investigation and criminal charges." "You're... what military investigator?" "I can't tell you exactly who I am. Not yet. But I need you to do something for me. Document everything. Write down every incident, every witness, every piece of evidence. Can you do that?" "They confiscated our phones. For security. Use paper. Hide it. I'll get it to the right people when the time comes." Jessica's eyes filled with tears. "Why should I believe you? Why should I think you're any different than everyone else who promised to help and then disappeared?" Sarah reached into her pocket, pulled out the small leather case she always carried. Opened it carefully. Inside was her retirement identification. and beneath it, visible for just 3 seconds before she closed the case again, a gold trident. The Navy SEAL insignia. Jessica's breath caught. "Oh my God, you're—" "Don't say it out loud," Sarah interrupted. "Don't tell anyone. Not Linda, not the other trainees, no one. If they find out who I really am, the investigation ends. The evidence gets buried. And they win. Can you keep that secret?" Jessica nodded frantically. "How long have you been—" 28 years. Retired 2 years ago. Came back for this. Because someone I loved died fighting the same battle you're fighting now, and I promised her I'd finish it. What do you need me to do? Document. Survive. Trust me. When the time comes, I'll make sure you're protected. I'll make sure they face consequences. But I need time to build the case. Can you give me that time?" Jessica wiped her eyes, nodded. "The wilderness training is in 4 days. They're going to hurt me out there. Hurt Linda. We both know it." "I'll be there," Sarah said. "I won't let them." "You're one person. There are 4 of them." Sarah's expression hardened. "Jessica, I've survived things that would put these boys in therapy for life. I've ended people more dangerous than they could ever be. If they push it too far, if anyone's life is actually in danger, I'll stop them. But we need evidence first. Pattern proof. The kind of documentation that destroys their legal protections. What if something happens to you? What if they figure out who you are? Then you take everything you've documented and send it to Captain Ellen Morrison, Naval Special Warfare Command, San Diego. Promise me you'll do that." "I promise. But please don't get yourself killed trying to save us." Sarah smiled. It was a hard smile, the kind that had preceded 47 trigger squeezes in 7 combat theaters. "I didn't survive Ramadi and Kandahar to die in Virginia at the hands of bullies. Trust me." Mess hall, 1900 hours. Dinner was served in shifts. Instructors ate first in a private dining area. Trainees ate in the main hall institutional tables, cafeteria food supervised by junior staff. Sarah sat alone. The social hierarchy had already established itself. Men clustered in groups based on prior service and shared experience. The 2 women sat separately, isolated by the invisible walls the instructors had built. David Park, a 24-year-old former Army specialist, broke the pattern. He sat down across from Sarah without asking permission. "You okay?" he asked quietly. "I'm fine." "Bullshit. I saw what Connor did to you. That wasn't training. That was assault." Sarah looked at him carefully. Young. Earnest. Uncomfortable with what he'd witnessed, but not quite brave enough to intervene. "You didn't say anything," she observed. His jaw tightened. "I know. I should have. I'm sorry." "Why didn't you—" "Because I'm a coward. Because I need this certification for employment. Because I told myself it wasn't my problem." He met her eyes. "I was wrong. It is my problem. And tomorrow, if they pull that shit again, I'm going to say something." "Don't," Sarah said. "What?" "Don't intervene, not yet. You'll just make yourself a target. So I should just watch them abuse people. I'm asking you to be smart. Document what you see. Remember the details. Be ready to testify when the time comes. That's more valuable than getting yourself kicked out for insubordination." David frowned. "You're talking like there's going to be some kind of investigation." "There will be. Trust me." "How do you know?" "Because abuse like this doesn't stay hidden forever. Eventually someone gathers enough evidence to break through the protection. When that happens, witnesses matter. Are you willing to be a witness?" "Yes," he said immediately. "Absolutely." "Good. Then watch. Remember, document if you can, but don't put yourself at risk. Not yet." He nodded slowly, started to stand, paused. "Can I ask you something?" "Sure." "Where'd you really learn to fight? Because that defensive positioning when Connor took you down, that wasn't amateur hour. That was training." Sarah's expression didn't change. "I've been around." "That's not an answer." "It's the only answer you're getting tonight. But David, keep watching. You're going to see a lot more before this is over." He left. Sarah finished her meal in silence. Across the hall, Jake Daniels watched her. Their eyes met. He raised his coffee cup in a mocking salute. Sarah didn't react, just looked at him with the same patience she'd used in Kandahar when Taliban fighters thought they had Americans trapped in a compound. The same patience that preceded 12 kills over 40 minutes. Jake didn't know it yet, but he was already finished. They all were. 2300 hours. Darkness. Sarah lay in her bunk, lights out, listening to the sounds of 29 other trainees breathing in the darkness. Her ribs ached. Her knee throbbed. The concussion made sleep difficult. But her mind was working, processing, planning. 4 days until wilderness training. 4 days to document enough evidence to justify federal intervention. 4 days to protect Jessica and Linda from whatever happened in those woods. Her sat phone was hidden in the lining of her boot. She could call Morrison right now, request extraction, end the mission before it got worse. But ending the mission meant Blackstone continued operating, meant more victims, meant Master Chief Hawk died for nothing. Sarah's hand moved to the small patch of fabric sewn inside her jacket, hidden where no one would find it. The patch had been Hawk's, her instructor patch from SEAL training, given to Sarah the day she graduated BUDS. "You earned this," Hawk had said, "but more importantly, you showed them. Now you've got a choice. You can stop here, you've proven your point, or you can keep showing them. Every day, every mission, every time someone says women don't belong. What's it going to be?" "I'm going to keep showing them," Sarah had answered. "Good, because they're going to need evidence. Lots of evidence, mountains of evidence. You be that evidence. And when you're done being evidence, you teach the next generation to do the same. That's the mission. That's what matters." Sarah had kept that promise for 28 years. Showed them in combat, showed them in leadership, showed them in every metric that mattered. Now she was showing them in a different way. By enduring abuse so she could document it. By taking beatings so the evidence would be undeniable. 4 more days. She could endure anything for 4 more days. Outside footsteps approached the barracks. Sarah's eyes opened immediately. Combat-trained alertness, the kind that wakes you when danger approaches. The door opened quietly, a figure silhouetted against the dim hallway light. Tyler Brooks stepped inside. He walked slowly down the row of bunks, stopped at Linda Martinez's bunk, stood there for 30 seconds, watching her sleep. Sarah's hand moved to the tactical knife hidden under her mattress. If he touched Linda, cover blown or not, she was ending this. But Tyler just stood there, watching. A psychological intimidation tactic, making sure Linda knew she wasn't safe, even in sleep. Then he turned, looked directly at Sarah's bunk. She closed her eyes immediately, controlled her breathing to match sleep patterns. He approached, stood over her bunk for what felt like forever. "I know you're awake," he whispered. "I know you're different. I can't figure out exactly how yet, but I will. And when I do, you're going to wish you'd quit when you had the chance." He left, door closing softly behind him. Sarah's eyes opened in the darkness, her hand still on the knife. 4 more days, she thought, just 4 more days. Then they learn what happens when you threaten a Navy SEAL. Then they learn that mud doesn't break warriors. It reveals them. Sarah didn't sleep after Tyler left. Couldn't. Her tactical mind ran scenarios on repeat exit strategies, intervention points, the exact moment patients would cross into complicity. The line kept moving. 3 hours ago, it had been clear. Now, with Tyler Brooks standing over sleeping women in the dark, the line blurred into something dangerous. At 0200 hours, her sat phone vibrated inside her boot. 3 short pulses. Emergency signal from Morrison. Sarah slipped out of her bunk, grabbed her jacket, and moved through the barracks like smoke. 29 people breathing in sleep patterns. None of them heard her leave. The latrine was empty. She locked herself in the farthest stall, pulled the phone from her boot lining, and answered on the first ring. "Ghost Actual," she whispered. Morrison's voice was tight. "We have a problem. Just got word Admiral Thornton made a call to a friend at DOD. He's asking questions about new enrollees, specifically about middle-aged female consultants with security backgrounds." Sarah's stomach dropped. He's running background checks. Looks like it. Your cover identity is solid, but if he digs deep enough, if he calls the right people, how much time do I have? 48 hours, maybe less. Sarah, I can extract you tonight. Helicopter from Chesapeake Bay. You'd be gone before sunrise. What about the investigation? We'd lose it. Everything you've documented becomes inadmissible without more evidence. But you'd be safe. Sarah closed her eyes, saw Master Chief Hawk's face, saw the photograph in Morrison's office, saw Jessica Parks' bruised forearm, saw Linda Martinez pretending to sleep while Tyler Brooks watched her like prey. No extraction, Sarah said. Sarah, I need 4 more days. The wilderness training is when they escalate. That's where Linda got broken. That's where they'll try to break Jessica. I can't leave them. If Thornton identifies you, you lose all legal protection. You're retired. You're civilian. If they hurt you, they've already hurt me, doesn't matter. What matters is the evidence. Morrison's silence stretched for 10 seconds. You sound like Hawk. Same stubborn streak. Same willingness to sacrifice yourself for the mission. Hawk taught me that some missions are worth dying for. She also taught you that staying alive to complete the mission beats martyrdom. Don't confuse the two. I won't, but I'm not leaving. Not yet. Morrison sighed. All right, 48 hours. After that, extraction is mandatory. And Sarah, if things go sideways, if you're in immediate danger, I'll break cover and end them. You have my word. That's what I'm afraid of. Try not to create an international incident. Thornton's American, technically domestic. Smartass. Call me in 12 hours. If I don't hear from you, I'm sending federal agents whether you like it or not. The line went dead. Sarah tucked the phone back into her boot, stood slowly feeling every bruise from yesterday's beating. Her ribs screamed, her knee threatened to buckle. The concussion made the fluorescent lights pulse like a heartbeat. She stepped out of the stall. Tyler Brooks was standing there. Midnight phone calls, he said quietly. That's interesting. Who were you talking to? Sarah's hand moved instinctively to her jacket pocket where her tactical knife lived. My lawyer, about my husband's estate. He died 6 months ago. Probate is complicated. It was in her cover story, verifiable if he checked, but Tyler's eyes said he wasn't buying it. You're a terrible liar, he said. Your breathing changed when you lied. Heart rate elevated. Micro expressions around your eyes. You've got training, real training. Who are you really? Sarah Brennan, consultant, widow, woman who's tired of your bullshit. Pick whichever identity makes you feel better. Tyler stepped closer. Not threatening yet, just testing boundaries. I've been doing this job for 3 years. Know what I've learned? Everyone breaks. The tough ones, the quiet ones, the ones who think they're special. Everyone has a breaking point. He emphasized each word. I'm going to find yours. Good luck with that. See, that's what they all say. Jessica said it. Linda said it. 7 others before them. Then we take them into the woods. 48 hours. No witnesses. No cameras. No rescue. Just instructors with full authority and trainees who learn exactly what happens when you don't belong. Sarah's voice went cold. What happened to Linda in those woods? Tyler smiled. Ask her yourself. Oh, wait, you can't. She signed an NDA. $50,000 to forget what she saw. What she experienced. He stopped. Reconsidered. What happened during training exercises? You almost said something else. Did I? You were about to say what we did to her. Then you caught yourself. Tyler's smile faded. You're observant. That's going to be a problem. For who, you or me? For you. Because observant people see things. And people who see things at Blackstone have accidents. Training accidents. The kind that end careers. Or worse. Sarah took 1 step forward. Closed the distance between them to 18 inches. Close enough to smell the coffee on his breath. close enough to strike his throat before he could react, close enough to end this entire conversation with 3 pounds of pressure applied to the carotid artery. Instead, she spoke. Quiet. Calm. The voice she'd used in interrogations when Taliban fighters thought they could outlast her patience. Tyler, listen very carefully. I don't care about your threats. I don't care about your intimidation tactics. I don't care about your wilderness training or your NDAs or your uncle's connections. What I care about is finishing this program. What happens during that process is entirely up to you and your colleagues. But understand something clearly, I'm not Jessica. I'm not Linda. I'm not anyone you've ever dealt with before. Test me if you want. Push me if you need to. But when you do, make sure you're ready for the consequences. Is that a threat? It's a statement of fact. Now get out of my way. Tyler didn't move. They stood there locked in a contest of wills. Sarah's combat experience screaming at her to neutralize the threat. Tyler's ego refusing to back down. Finally, he stepped aside. 4 days. Wilderness training. We'll see how tough you really are. Sarah walked past him. Didn't look back. Didn't show weakness. Just returned to the barracks like the conversation never happened. But her hands were shaking. Not from fear. From the effort it took not to put Tyler Brooks on the ground where he belonged. She climbed back into her bunk. Stared at the ceiling. Counted her remaining time in hours instead of days. 96 hours until wilderness training. 96 hours to build evidence strong enough to destroy them all. Somewhere in the darkness, Jessica Parks whispered, "Sarah, you okay?" "I'm fine. Go back to sleep." I heard voices in the latrine. Was that Tyler? Yeah. What did he want? Sarah turned her head, met Jessica's eyes in the dim light filtering through the barracks windows. He wanted me to be scared. He failed. Everyone gets scared eventually. Not everyone. Some of us learned a long time ago that fear is just information. Tells you where the danger is. What you do with that information is what matters. Jessica sat up slightly, kept her voice low so the other trainees wouldn't hear. You promised you'd protect us. In the woods. How are you going to do that? There are 4 of them. You're one person. You're injured. Your knee can barely hold weight. Sarah smiled in the darkness. Jessica, I've operated in worse condition against better opponents in environments that make Virginia forests look like vacation resorts. Trust me when I say 4 untested instructors don't scare me. They should. They're dangerous. So am I. The certainty in Sarah's voice made Jessica go quiet. When she finally spoke again, her words were almost inaudible. You're going to hurt them, aren't you? When the time comes. You're going to make them pay. I'm going to do whatever's necessary to protect people who can't protect themselves. If that means violence, then yes. But I'd prefer to destroy them legally. Prison time, federal charges, the kind of consequences that end careers and lives the right way. What if that's not enough? What if they push too far? Then they learn what happens when you threaten a Navy SEAL, Sarah said quietly, then caught herself. I mean, I already know what you are. You showed me your trident. Remember, I'm not going to tell anyone. But Sarah, I'm glad you're here. For the first time since I arrived at this place, I feel like maybe I'm not alone. You're not alone. Neither is Linda. And in 4 days, when we're in those woods, I'm going to make sure they understand that hurting either of you means going through me. And that's a fight they can't win. Jessica lay back down. Thank you. Don't thank me yet. This is going to get worse before it gets better. I know, but at least someone's fighting back. Sarah closed her eyes. Let the exhaustion pull her towards something resembling sleep. Her last conscious thought was of Master Chief Hawk standing in the surf zone at Coronado 27 years ago, telling a young woman that showing them was the only thing that mattered. She was still showing them, and she wasn't done yet. Morning came too fast. 0530, whistles blaring, instructors shouting, trainees scrambling out of bunks in the half-light before dawn. On the yard in 3 minutes. Jake Daniels' voice cut through the barracks like a knife. Full PT gear. Move your asses. Sarah was already dressed. Had been since 0500, anticipating exactly this. Her knee protested when she stood. The ribs sent sharp pains through her chest with every breath. But she moved. Filed out with the other trainees into the cold December morning where frost made the grass crunch underfoot. 29 bodies arranged in formation. Jake stood at the front. Connor to his left. Tyler to his right. Marcus in the back, looking uncomfortable but present. Morning PT, Jake announced. 5-mile run. Full pace. Anyone falls behind, everyone repeats the run. Questions. No one spoke. Good. Brennan, front and center. Sarah stepped forward, every eye on her. Jake smiled. You're setting the pace today. Let's see if that tough talk from yesterday translates to performance. If you fall behind, if you quit, everyone runs it again. And I promise you, they'll remember who's responsible. It was a trap. Create resentment among the other trainees. Make Sarah the problem. Isolate her through peer pressure. Classic abuse tactic. Sarah nodded once. Understood. Outstanding. Lead the way. She moved to the front of the formation. Started running before Jake finished speaking. Set a pace that was aggressive but sustainable. 7-minute miles. Faster than most civilians could maintain for 5 miles, but well within military standards. Her knee screamed. Each footfall sent pain shooting up her leg. The damaged meniscus grinding against cartilage. She could feel it tearing further with every step. Didn't matter. Pain was just information. Mile 1 passed. The formation stayed tight behind her. No one falling out. Mile 2. Her breathing stayed controlled. 4 counts in, 4 counts out. SEAL rhythm. The cadence that carried you through Hell Week when your body said quit and your mind said one more step. Tyler ran up beside her. You're doing great, almost like you've done this before. She didn't answer, saved her breath for running. Military background, he pressed. You move like someone with training. Corporate fitness programs, Sarah gasped out. Executive wellness. Bullshit. Your running form is textbook military. Cadence is too precise. You've been trained. Mile 3. The pace was taking its toll on the other trainees. Sarah heard heavy breathing behind her, someone stumbling, but no one fell out. They were keeping up through sheer determination not to run this twice. Who trained you? Tyler asked again. YouTube videos, Sarah said. Lots of time. When your husband dies, you need something to do. She was gasping between words now, making it look harder than it was. Selling the struggle while her body operated on muscle memory developed over thousands of miles of SEAL training runs. Mile 4. Her knee finally buckled. Not completely, she caught herself, but enough that Tyler saw. You're injured, he observed. I'm fine. No, you're not. You're running on a torn meniscus. That's going to need surgery if you keep pushing it. After the program. You're going to cripple yourself to prove a point. If that's what it takes. Mile 5. The finish line appeared the training yard where they'd started. Sarah pushed through the pain, crossed into the yard, stopped, bent over with hands on knees, gasping. The formation finished behind her. 29 trainees. All completed. No one fell out. Jake checked his watch. 37 minutes. Acceptable. Barely. Brennan, you look like shit. Thank you, sir. That wasn't a compliment. Hit the showers. Formation in 30 minutes for morning brief. The trainees dispersed. Sarah limped toward the barracks. David Park caught up to her. That was impressive, he said quietly. Most people your age couldn't maintain that pace for 1 mile, let alone 5. Adrenaline, fear, stubbornness, or training, professional training. Where'd you really serve? Sarah stopped walking, looked at him carefully. I didn't serve anywhere. I'm a consultant. Right, and I'm the Pope. Look, I don't care what your real background is, but whatever it is, it's keeping you upright when you should be in a hospital. Just know that some of us see it. And we're wondering what happens when you stop hiding it. Nothing happens, because there's nothing to hide. David shrugged. If you say so. But when things go sideways, and they will, I'm on your side. Just so you know." He walked away before Sarah could respond. She continued to the barracks, found Jessica and Linda waiting outside the women's shower area. "You shouldn't have done that," Linda said. It was the first time she'd spoken directly to Sarah. Her voice was flat, emotionless, the affect of someone who'd had feelings beaten out of them. "Done what?" Sarah asked. "Pushed yourself that hard. They're going to target you now. They saw you struggling. They know you're hurt. That's when they really start breaking you. Let them try." Linda's eyes met Sarah's, dead eyes, haunted. "You think you're strong enough. Everyone does. I thought I was strong too. Marine Corps veteran, combat deployment. I'd seen things, survived things. Then they took us into the woods." Her voice dropped to a whisper. "I broke in 18 hours. 18 hours was all it took for them to find the thing that shattered me. You will break too. Everyone does." "What did they do to you?" Sarah asked gently. Linda's face went blank. "I signed an NDA. I can't talk about it." "Legally, NDAs don't protect illegal activity. If they committed crimes—" "It doesn't matter," Linda interrupted. "Even if I could prove it, even if I could testify, who would believe me? Admiral Thornton has connections everywhere. Local cops, federal contractors, DOD personnel. He's untouchable. And anyone who tries to touch him gets destroyed." "Not everyone," Sarah said. "You don't know what you're up against." "Yes, I do. Better than you think." Linda studied her for a long moment. "Jessica trusts you. I don't know why, but she does. So I'm going to tell you something. Tonight after lights out, come to the equipment shed behind the barracks. Bring Jessica. I'll show you what they're really doing here. Then you'll understand why I'm leaving, why everyone leaves." "What's in the equipment shed?" "Evidence. The kind they don't know I kept. The kind that proves everything." Sarah's pulse quickened. "Why now? Why not show someone before?" "Because I was scared. Because I thought if I stayed quiet, if I took the money and left, they'd leave me alone. But Tyler came to my house last week, reminded me that NDAs have consequences, that if I talked, they'd make sure I never worked in security again. That's when I realized they're never going to let me go. So, fuck it. Fuck them. Fuck the NDA. If I'm going down, I'm taking them with me." "What changed?" Sarah asked. "You," Linda said simply. "You stood up to them, took the beating, kept going. I watched you run 5 miles on a destroyed knee because you refused to quit. That's either courage or insanity. Either way, it reminded me I used to have that, before they took it from me." Jessica spoke for the first time. "Linda, are you sure if you break the NDA?" "They're going to break me worse if I don't. At least this way, I fight back." Sarah nodded slowly. "Tonight, after lights out, equipment shed, we'll be there. Come alone. Just you two. If anyone else sees what I have, they'll report it. The instructors have eyes everywhere." Linda walked away, left Sarah and Jessica standing in the cold morning air. "Do you trust her?" Jessica whispered. "I don't know, but if she has evidence, we need it, even if it's a trap." "What if it is a trap? What if Tyler put her up to this? Then we spring it carefully, and if things go wrong, I handle it." "By yourself, Sarah, you can barely walk." Sarah smiled. "I've fought better opponents in worse condition. These boys don't scare me." "They should," Jessica said. "They scare me. They terrified Linda, and she was a Marine. Being scared is smart. Being paralyzed by fear is what they want. We're not giving them that." Morning briefing was in the main hall. All 30 trainees assembled in rows. The 4 instructors stood at the front like judges preparing to pass sentence. Jake spoke first. "Wilderness training departs in 96 hours. Between now and then, we're going to assess whether each of you is qualified to participate. This assessment will be physical, mental, and emotional. Some of you won't make the cut. That's fine. Better to wash out here than die in the woods." Connor stepped forward. "The woods aren't forgiving. Weather's going to be cold. Mid-30s during the day. Low 20s at night. You'll be carrying full packs, sleeping in tactical shelters, conducting land navigation exercises. and dealing with scenarios designed to test your breaking point. Tyler added, "Some of you are already showing weakness, injuries, poor attitude, inability to maintain standards. If you're smart, you'll quit now. Save yourself the humiliation of breaking in front of your peers." His eyes landed on Sarah when he said it. She stared back, didn't blink. Marcus was the last to speak. "If anyone has concerns about the training, now's the time to voice them. Once we're in the woods, there's no extraction, no emergency contact, no way out except completing the 48 hours or admitting defeat." Silence filled the hall. Then Sarah raised her hand. Jake's eyebrows rose. "Brennan, you have a question?" "Not a question, an observation. You keep mentioning people breaking, people quitting, people not being qualified. But you haven't mentioned what success looks like. What are the actual standards? What constitutes passing this wilderness training?" The four instructors exchanged glances. "Survival," Jake said finally. "That's the standard. You survive the 48 hours you pass. Survive physically, mentally. What's the metric? All of the above. That's not a standard. That's subjective judgment. Who decides if someone's mentally surviving?" Jake's face hardened. "I do. My instructors do. We have the experience and training to assess combat readiness." "What training?" Sarah pressed. "What qualifications do you have to evaluate psychological resilience under stress?" The room went silent. Every trainee suddenly very interested in the floor. Connor stepped forward. "You questioning our credentials?" "I'm asking what they are. Legitimate question. If you're going to put us through stress tests that determine our careers, we should know your background." Tyler laughed. "You want our resumes? This isn't a job interview, lady." "No, it's a training program. One that costs $15,000 and requires medical releases that waive the company's liability for injury or death. I'd like to know who's in charge of keeping us alive." Jake's jaw clenched. "My uncle founded this company. Admiral Richard Thornton, Navy SEAL. 25 years of service. He trained us personally. That good enough for you?" "Admiral Thornton isn't conducting the training, you are. So what's your background? Army Ranger candidate. Didn't complete selection due to administrative issues." "What kind of administrative issues?" "That's not your concern." Sarah smiled. "Actually, it is. Because if psychological evaluation flagged you as unsuitable for Ranger training, that's relevant to your ability to conduct psychological stress testing on trainees." The temperature in the room dropped 20 degrees. Connor moved toward Sarah. "You've got a smart mouth. That's going to cause problems." "I've got legitimate questions. If asking questions causes problems, that tells me more about this program than any answer would." Jake held up a hand. Stopped Connor from approaching further. "Brennan, you're on thin ice. Keep pushing and you're out." "For what? Asking about instructor qualifications? That's grounds for dismissal. For insubordination." "This isn't the military. You're civilian instructors. I'm a paying client. Insubordination isn't applicable." David Park made a sound that might have been a suppressed laugh. Jake's head snapped toward him. "Something funny, Park?" "No, sir." "You think Brennan's got a point?" David hesitated. Sarah could see the calculation in his eyes. Safety versus conscience. Self-preservation versus standing up for what's right. "I think," David said carefully, "that knowing instructor backgrounds is reasonable when we're signing liability waivers that include death as a potential outcome." Two other trainees nodded. A murmur of agreement rippled through the formation. Jake's face went red. "Everyone who agrees with Brennan's insubordination, raise your hand." 12 hands went up, almost half the trainees. "Outstanding," Jake said coldly. "Everyone who raised their hand just volunteered for extra PT. 15-mile ruck march. Full packs. Starts in 1 hour. Dismissed." The formation broke. Trainees scattered. The 12 who'd raised their hands looked at Sarah with expressions ranging from respect to resentment. David approached as she headed toward the barracks. That was either really brave or really stupid. Probably both. Now we're all paying for it. "I'm sorry, I didn't mean to drag you into this." "Don't apologize. You asked legitimate questions. They responded with punishment. That tells me everything I need to know about this place." He lowered his voice. "Also tells me you're not really a consultant." Consultants don't know military doctrine well enough to question instructor credentials like that. I read a lot. Sure you do. Look, I don't know what your real story is, but whatever happens in the next 4 days, I've got your back. Tell me what you need. Sarah studied him carefully, young, idealistic, genuinely trying to do the right thing. The kind of person who got hurt when institutions failed. Document everything, she said. Every exercise, every interaction, every time they crossed the line from training into abuse. Can you do that? Yeah. Why? Because when this is over, witnesses are going to matter. Good witnesses who can testify to pattern behavior. You willing to be that witness? To what? What are you planning? Justice. The kind that sticks. David nodded slowly. Count me in. That night at 2300 hours, Sarah and Jessica slipped out of the barracks, moved through shadows toward the equipment shed behind the building. The moon was a sliver, darkness their ally. Linda was already there waiting. She'd pried open the padlock. The shed's interior smelled like oil and metal and something else. Something wrong. Linda flicked on a small flashlight, pointed it at the back corner. Sarah's breath caught. Zip ties, dozens of them, some with dried blood on the plastic, duct tape, rope, a taser, pepper spray, items that had no place in legitimate training equipment. This is what they use, Linda whispered. During wilderness training, they call it enhanced stress simulation, reality-based training. But it's not training, it's torture. Jessica started crying silently, Sarah's hands clenched into fists. Tell me exactly what they did. Linda's voice was dead, flat, the voice of someone reciting trauma from a safe distance. They separated the women from the men, took us to a different location, zip-tied our hands, said it was prisoner simulation training. Then Connor. Her voice broke. Then Connor put his hands on me. Not sexually, not quite, but close enough that I knew what he was threatening, close enough that I understood what would happen if I didn't comply. So I complied. I let them humiliate me. I let them break me down. And when it was over, they made me sign the NDA before they'd release me. $50,000 to forget what happened, to never speak about it, to let them do it to the next woman. Did you take photographs? Sarah asked. Video. They confiscated our phones, but I kept one zip tie, the one they used on me. It has my skin cells on it, DNA evidence. I've been carrying it in my pocket for 3 months like a fucking talisman of my own weakness. That's not weakness, that's evidence. Linda, this is exactly what we need. We who's we? Sarah made a decision. Calculated risk. Necessary trust. I'm not a consultant. I'm a federal investigator. Retired Navy SEAL working with Naval Special Warfare Command to build a criminal case against Blackstone. Everything you just told me is evidence. Everything in this shed is evidence. Your testimony is evidence. With your cooperation, we can destroy them. Linda stared at her. You're serious? Completely. Prove it. Sarah pulled out her retirement ID, showed the SEAL trident beneath it. Let Linda see it for 5 seconds before putting it away. Linda's legs gave out. She sat down hard on the shed floor. Oh my God. You're really here to end them. But I need your help. I need you to testify. I need the zip tie. I need everything you remember documented in writing. Can you do that? If I testify, if I break the NDA, they'll sue me for everything I have. NDAs don't protect criminal activity. Federal prosecutors will grant you immunity from civil penalties. You won't lose anything except the $50,000. And honestly, is that money worth keeping if it bought their silence about what they did to you? Linda's face crumpled. She'd been holding this inside for months, carrying the weight alone. Now someone was offering to share the burden. I'll testify, she said. I'll tell everything. But Sarah, you need to understand something. Admiral Thornton is connected. He's got friends at DOD, federal contractors, senators. If you go after him, you're going to need an airtight case. You're going to need evidence so overwhelming that his connections can't save him. I'm building that case, but I need 4 more days. I need to survive wilderness training. I need to document what they do when they think no one's watching. Can you hold out for 4 more days? I'm leaving tomorrow. I can't stay here. Yes, you can, Sarah said firmly. Because if you leave now, they win. They get to do this to Jessica, to the next woman, to every woman who comes through here. But if you stay, if you help me document it, we end them, all of them, including Thornton. Linda looked at Jessica. What do you think? Jessica wiped her eyes. I think Sarah's right. I think we have a chance to stop this. And I think if we run now, we'll regret it for the rest of our lives. Linda stood slowly, picked up the blood-stained zip tie, handed it to Sarah. Then let's burn them down. Sarah took the zip tie, sealed it in a plastic evidence bag she'd hidden in her jacket. Thank you, both of you. This is going to get worse before it gets better. But I promise you when it's done, they're going to federal prison. That's my word. They left the shed, locked it behind them, returned to the barracks separately. Sarah lay in her bunk, the evidence bag hidden in her boot next to the sat phone. 96 hours until wilderness training. 96 hours to build an unbreakable case. She thought about Master Chief Hawk. About the promise she'd made at Arlington. About the women who'd been broken before Linda. About the women who'd be broken after Jessica if Sarah failed. She wasn't going to fail. Not this time. Not ever again. The transport trucks arrived at dawn. Military surplus vehicles that had seen better decades exhaust coughing black smoke into the December air. Sarah watched Jake Daniels supervise the loading with the precision of someone who'd done this many times before. Too many times. Packs on full load, Connor shouted. 60 pounds minimum. We're checking weight. 29 trainees lined up for inspection. Sarah's pack had been carefully calibrated, exactly 60 pounds distributed to protect her damaged knee. Medical supplies hidden in waterproof bags. Sat phone wrapped in thermal insulation to prevent detection. Evidence bag with Linda's zip tie sealed in the bottom compartment where curious hands wouldn't find it. Tyler moved down the line with a hanging scale, weighed each pack. Most came in between 60 and 70 pounds. When he got to Jessica, his smile turned predatory. 58 pounds, he announced. 2 pounds short. You know what that means. Jessica's face went pale. I can add, too late. Violation of standards. Everyone drop and give me 50 push-ups. Thank Parks for the privilege. The groans were immediate. Trainees hit the ground, Sarah among them. 50 push-ups with broken ribs was agony, but she pushed through it, counted each rep, watched Jessica's face crumple with guilt and shame. This was the pattern. Isolate the women. Make them responsible for group punishment. Turn the group against them through manufactured resentment. When they finished, Tyler moved to Linda's pack. 62 pounds, acceptable. Then to Sarah's. The scale read exactly 60. His eyes narrowed. You measured this precisely. I follow instructions, Sarah said. Most people overshoot. Go for 65, 70 just to be safe. You hit 60 exactly. That's either extreme luck or extreme precision. I'm good with numbers. Or good with load distribution. Military load distribution, the kind they teach in tactical operations courses. Sarah met his eyes. I watched YouTube videos. Right, YouTube. He didn't believe her. She could see it, but he couldn't prove anything. Not yet. The trucks departed at 0700. Sarah sat between Jessica and Linda in the cargo bed. David Park was across from them, along with 8 other male trainees. The instructors rode in a separate vehicle ahead. 40 miles, David said quietly. That's how far we're going. I checked the route map before they locked it away. We're headed to the Appalachian foothills. Private land. No cell service. No roads in or out except the one we're taking. How do you know this? Linda asked. I used to be a forward observer in the Army. Land navigation was my specialty. I memorized the topographic map during the briefing yesterday. Sarah filed this information away. David's skills might prove useful. Can you find your way back without a map? Why would we need to do that? Just asking. Jessica leaned close to Sarah, whispered so only she could hear. Are you planning something? Always planning. That's what keeps you alive. What if they separate us? Linda said they split the women from the men. Then we adapt, improvise, overcome. That's what warriors do. I'm not a warrior. I'm terrified. Sarah took Jessica's hand, squeezed once. Fear is normal. Courage isn't the absence of fear. It's acting despite it. You've already shown more courage than most people demonstrate in a lifetime. You reached out to Naval Command. You documented abuse. You trusted me with information that could get you hurt. That's courage, Jessica. Don't forget that. The truck hit a pothole. Everyone jolted. Sarah's ribs screamed. She didn't make a sound. Linda noticed. Your ribs are broken, aren't they? Cracked, not broken. What's the difference? Broken means I can't function. Cracked means I function through pain. Big difference. You should be in a hospital. I've operated with worse injuries in worse environments. This is manageable. Linda shook her head. You're either the toughest person I've ever met or the craziest. Can it be both? Despite everything, Linda almost smiled. You remind me of my drill instructor in basic training. She was 52 years old, meaner than a snake, tougher than steel. She used to say pain was just weakness leaving the body. Your DI was wrong, Sarah said. Pain is your body's warning system. Tells you when you're hurt. What you do with that information determines whether you survive or succumb. Ignoring pain is stupid. Managing it is tactical. Where'd you learn that? Sarah caught herself before answering honestly. Life experience, bad marriages, worse divorces. The truck climbed into foothills. Temperature dropped. Through the canvas cover, Sarah could see pine trees replacing deciduous growth. Higher elevation, more isolated. After 90 minutes, the truck stopped. The canvas flap opened. Jake Daniels stood there with a clipboard and a smile that promised suffering. Welcome to hell, he said cheerfully. Grab your packs. Form up outside. We've got a briefing before you start dying. They assembled in a clearing surrounded by forest. No buildings visible. No roads except the dirt track they'd arrived on. Nothing but trees and cold, and the certainty that whatever happened here, no one would hear screams. Jake stood on a wooden platform. Connor and Tyler flanked him. Marcus hung back, his discomfort more visible now that they were away from official oversight. Rules of engagement, Jake began. For the next 48 hours, you belong to us. You follow every order. You complete every task. You endure every test. There are no timeouts. No safe words. No emergency extractions. If you want to quit, you walk back to the road and wait for pickup, Sunday morning. That's a 40-mile walk through terrain you don't know. Most people who try it get lost. Some get injured. One guy died of exposure 3 years ago. But hey, it's your choice. Sarah's tactical mind processed this information. One death. Never reported. Covered up. How many other casualties had Blackstone buried? Your first task, Connor announced, is land navigation. You'll be given coordinates. You'll navigate to checkpoints using map and compass. No GPS, no phones, no technology, just your brain and your skills. Tyler held up a stack of envelopes. Each envelope contains your specific route. Some routes are harder than others. That's life. Deal with it. He moved through the formation, handing out envelopes. When he got to Sarah, he paused. You're going solo. Everyone else gets a partner. You're experienced enough to handle it alone, right? Sure, Sarah said. Knew it was a setup. Didn't care. Jessica got partnered with a male trainee who looked uncomfortable about it. Linda got paired with David Park, which was lucky. David would protect her. You have 6 hours to reach your final checkpoint, Jake said. That's where we'll camp tonight. Anyone who doesn't make it by 1800 hours doesn't eat. Questions? No one spoke. Outstanding. Open your envelopes. Start navigating. Clock starts now. Sarah tore open her envelope. Inside was a topographic map with 3 checkpoints marked. She studied the route. 12 miles. Elevation gain of 2,000 feet. Terrain that included stream crossings, cliff faces, and dense forest. It was designed to be impossible in 6 hours. especially for someone with a damaged knee and broken ribs. She smiled. Impossible was relative. The other trainees scattered into the woods following their routes. Sarah checked her compass bearing, adjusted her pack, ignored the pain in her knee, and started moving. The first checkpoint was 4 miles north-northeast. She moved through the forest like smoke, using terrain to her advantage. Her SEAL training came flooding back land navigation in environments far worse than Virginia woods. Fallujah urban terrain, Kandahar mountains, Syrian desert. This was a vacation by comparison. She reached checkpoint 1 in 90 minutes, a simple marker tied to a tree with a sign-in sheet. She signed, noted the time, checked her next bearing. Checkpoint 2 was another 5 miles. The terrain got nasty, steep inclines, loose rock sections where she had to use her hands to climb. Her ribs protested every movement. Her knee threatened to give out on every downslope. But she'd survived worse. She thought about Kandahar, the mission where she'd earned her call sign. 40 minutes of sustained fire while wounded. 12 kills. Kept a Marine platoon alive through sheer refusal to quit. If she could do that, she could hike 12 miles with broken ribs. Checkpoint 2. 3 hours elapsed. She was making good time. Better than expected. The final checkpoint was 3 miles west. She checked her map. Noticed something wrong. The marked route went directly over a cliff face, not around it, over it. She studied the topographic lines carefully. 50-foot vertical drop. Technically climbable, but not without equipment, not without rope and harnesses and safety gear they hadn't been issued. This was the test. See if she'd take the dangerous route or admit she couldn't complete it. Sarah smiled. Found a game trail that went around the cliff face. Added 2 miles to her route, but avoided the vertical climb. Tactical thinking. Mission completion mattered more than following impossible orders. She reached the final checkpoint at 16:45 hours, 90 minutes early. Jake Daniels was there waiting. His surprise was visible. "How the hell did you get here so fast?" "I walked. The route I gave you was 14 miles with a technical climb. You did it in under 5 hours on a bad knee. Want to explain that?" "I went around the cliff. Added distance but saved time. Basic tactical decision-making." Jake's jaw clenched. "You were supposed to attempt the climb. The instructions said reach the checkpoint. Didn't specify the route. I reached it. Mission complete." Connor emerged from the trees. "She's right. We didn't specify the exact path. She improvised." "Improvisation wasn't the test," Jake snapped. "Obedience was." "Then write better instructions," Sarah said calmly. "If you want specific compliance issue, specific orders. If you leave room for interpretation, expect people to interpret." Tyler appeared leading a group of male trainees who'd just arrived. They looked exhausted, muddy. One was limping. They stared at Sarah with expressions of disbelief. "You beat us here," one of them asked. "We're half your age and we barely made it." "She cheated," Jake said. "Didn't follow the designated route." "You didn't designate a route," Sarah countered. "You designated a destination. I reached it within time parameters. That's mission success by any military standard." The arriving trainees murmured agreement. Jake's face reddened. "Everyone who arrives before 1800 gets dinner," Connor announced, diffusing the tension. "Set up camp. We'll brief tonight's exercise after we eat." Over the next hour, more trainees arrived. Jessica and her partner came in at 17:30, exhausted but successful. Linda and David made it at 17:45. Linda limping badly, but determined. 3 trainees didn't make the deadline. They stumbled in after 1,800 faces pale with exhaustion and fear. "Too slow," Jake announced. "No dinner for you. You'll watch everyone else eat. Maybe hunger will motivate you tomorrow." Sarah watched this play out. Watched 3 grown men stand in the cold while others ate. Psychological warfare, deprivation tactics, classic torture methodology. She cataloged everything, evidence mounting with each passing hour. After dinner, Jake gathered everyone around a campfire. The flames cast dancing shadows across his face, making him look demonic. "Tonight's exercise is stress inoculation," he began. We're going to simulate capture and interrogation. You'll be zip-tied blindfolded and subjected to enhanced questioning techniques. This is reality-based training. Some of you won't handle it well. That's fine. Better to discover your limits here than in actual combat. Sarah's hands clenched. This was it. This was what Linda had described. The torture disguised as training. We'll be conducting interviews in pairs, Connor added. Random selection. When your name is called, you report to the interrogation tent. Tyler pulled out a clipboard, started reading names. Johnson and Martinez, you're first. Linda's face went white. Jessica grabbed her hand. It's going to be okay, Jessica whispered. Linda shook her head. No, it's not. This is where they broke me last time. This is where everything went wrong. Sarah leaned close. Linda, listen to me. If they cross the line, if they do anything that endangers you, I will intervene. I don't care about the mission. I don't care about evidence. I will end them before I let them hurt you again. Do you understand? You can't stop all four of them. Watch me, Connor called again. Martinez, let's go. Don't make me come get you. Linda stood on shaking legs, walked toward the interrogation tent, a military surplus structure set up 50 yards from the main camp. Johnson, her partner, followed reluctantly. Sarah started to rise. Jessica caught her arm. What are you doing? Making sure they don't hurt her. If you interfere, you'll blow your cover. Then I blow my cover. Some things are more important than investigations. David Park appeared beside them. I'm coming with you. No, Sarah said firmly. Stay here. If things go wrong, you're my witness. Document everything you see. Promise me. David hesitated, then nodded. Be careful. Sarah moved through the darkness toward the interrogation tent, positioned herself behind a tree line where she could see inside through a gap in the canvas. Linda and Johnson were zip-tied to chairs. Blindfolds covered their eyes. Connor stood in front of them holding something Sarah couldn't identify from this distance. First question, Connor said conversationally. What's your greatest fear? Johnson answered. Something about failure. Connor laughed. Wrong answer. Everyone fears pain more than failure. Let me demonstrate. He touched something to Johnson's arm. The man screamed. A taser. Connor was using a taser during training exercises. Sarah's hand moved to her tactical knife. Every instinct screamed at her to move. To end this. Not yet. Document first. Intervene if necessary. Connor moved to Linda. Your turn. What's your greatest fear? Linda's voice was barely audible. Being powerless. Good answer. Honest answer. Let's explore that. He moved behind her, put his hands on her shoulders. Not violent. Not yet. But the threat was clear, the implication unmistakable. You feel powerless now, don't you? He whispered. Tied up. Blindfolded. Alone. No one to protect you. No one who cares. Linda started crying. Please don't. Please don't. What I'm not doing anything. Just talking. That's allowed, right? Talking. His hands moved lower, toward her collarbone. Sarah was moving before she made the conscious decision. Out of the trees, across the clearing, into the tent in 3 seconds flat. Get your hands off her. Connor spun. His surprise lasted exactly 1 second before his face hardened. This is a training exercise. Get out. Training doesn't include sexual assault. I wasn't assaulting anyone. I was conducting stress inoculation. By touching a woman who's tied up and blindfolded, that's assault. Federal law. Clear violation. Jake entered the tent behind Sarah. Brennan, you're interfering with official training protocols. Leave now or you're dismissed from the program. Sarah turned to face him. Dismiss me. I don't care. What I care about is stopping you from torturing trainees under the guise of education. Torture. Jake laughed. You don't know what torture is. Actually, I do. I've been trained in SEER survival, evasion, resistance, escape. I know exactly what legitimate stress inoculation looks like. This isn't it. This is abuse, and it ends now. The tent went silent. Tyler appeared in the doorway. Did she just say SEER training? That's military. Advanced military. Sarah realized her mistake too late. She'd revealed too much. Broken cover. Compromised the investigation. Jake's eyes widened. Who are you really? Someone who's had enough of your bullshit. No, you're more than that. SEER training is special operations, Navy SEALs, Army Special Forces. You're not a consultant. His voice rose. You're military. You're a plant. You're here investigating us. Connor released Linda's zip ties, stepped toward Sarah. Start talking. Real name, real background. Why are you here? Sarah's tactical mind ran calculations. 4 hostile actors. Multiple witnesses. Evidence already collected. Mission compromised but not failed. Time to show them who they'd really been abusing. My name is Lieutenant Commander Sarah Brennan, United States Navy SEALs retired. I'm here on behalf of Naval Special Warfare Command to investigate allegations of systematic abuse, assault, and harassment. You're all under citizen's arrest for assault, battery, civil rights violations, and conspiracy to obstruct justice. The silence that followed was absolute. Then Jake laughed. You expect us to believe you're a SEAL. You're 54 years old. You can barely walk. You're nobody. I'm the woman you threw in the mud 3 days ago. I'm the woman who ran 5 miles on a torn meniscus. I'm the woman who hiked 12 miles in under 5 hours through terrain designed to break me. And I'm the woman who's about to end your careers and put you in federal prison. Connor's hand moved to his belt. He pulled a knife. I don't think so. I think you're going to have an accident out here. Training accident. Tragic. But these things happen. Sarah's eyes went cold. Put the knife down. Final warning. Or what? You'll fight me. You're injured, old, and surrounded. You've got nothing. I've got 28 years of combat experience, 47 confirmed kills, and muscle memory that makes your knife look like a toy. Connor lunged. Sarah moved. What happened next took exactly 4 seconds. Connor's knife hand was deflected with a classic SEAL disarm technique. His wrist was locked, twisted, controlled. His own momentum was used against him, slamming him face first into the tent pole. The knife clattered to the ground. Sarah kicked it away, applied a compliance hold that put Connor on his knees. Stay down. Don't test me again. Jake and Tyler rushed forward. Sarah released Connor, shifted stance. 2 opponents, both larger, both younger, both untested. She'd faced worse odds in Fallujah. Jake threw a punch. Sarah slipped it, delivered a palm strike to his solar plexus. Air exploded from his lungs. He doubled over. Tyler tried to grab her from behind. She dropped her weight, used his momentum to throw him over her hip. He crashed into the tent wall, collapsing part of the structure, 3 instructors down in under 10 seconds. Marcus stood in the doorway. His hands were empty. His face showed pure shock. Help them or help me, Sarah said. Choose carefully. This is the moment that defines who you are. Marcus looked at his colleagues on the ground, looked at Linda still tied to the chair crying, looked at Johnson watching with wide eyes, looked at Sarah standing in the center of the collapsed tent, like a warrior carved from granite. I choose you, Marcus said quietly. I should have chosen you 3 months ago. I'm sorry I didn't. Then help me secure them. Zip ties. Now. Marcus grabbed zip ties from the interrogation supplies. Together they restrained Jake, Connor, and Tyler. 3 grown men neutralized by a 54-year-old woman they'd dismissed as weak. Sarah pulled out her sat phone. Dialed Morrison. Ghost Actual. Mission compromised but evidence secured. 3 suspects in custody. Requesting immediate federal response. I have assault on camera, torture implements, witness testimony, and DNA evidence. Send everyone. Morrison's voice was sharp. Are you injured? Negative. Suspects are injured but stable. I need FBI, local law enforcement, and JAG Corps legal team. This is going to be high profile. ETA 90 minutes. Hold position. Don't let them destroy evidence. Understood. Sarah ended the call. Looked at the 3 men zip-tied on the ground. Looked at Linda, now free crying in Jessica's arms. Looked at David Park and 12 other trainees standing outside the collapsed tent, phones out recording everything. For 28 years, Sarah said quietly, I fought enemies overseas, protected Americans from threats they'd never see. I thought when I retired the fighting was done. I was wrong. The fight continues here, against people who abuse power, who hurt the vulnerable, who hide behind institutions and connections and NDAs. She looked directly at Jake. Your uncle can't save you. Your lawyers can't save you. Your connections mean nothing. Because what you did to Linda, to Jessica, to 7 other women, that's on camera now. Witnessed, documented, undeniable. Jake spat blood. You've got nothing that will stick. Your uncle is next. Admiral Richard Thornton is under investigation for obstruction of justice, witness tampering, and racketeering. When federal agents tear apart Blackstone's financial records, when they interview every woman you paid off, when they compile testimony from 20 witnesses who watched you commit assault tonight, he's going to federal prison, just like you. Connor struggled against his restraints. You can't prove any of this. Sarah pulled the evidence bag from her pack, showed him the blood-stained zip tie Linda had kept. Linda's DNA, your fingerprints, physical evidence of assault. Combined with her testimony, Jessica's testimony, tonight's assault on camera, and the testimony of 12 witnesses, I can prove everything. Tyler was crying now. Quiet, desperate tears. We were just doing our jobs, following orders, training people. Following orders isn't a defense. It didn't work at Nuremberg. It won't work here. Sirens echoed in the distance. Federal response 90 minutes early. Morrison must have had agents on standby. Sarah looked at Linda and Jessica. It's over. They can't hurt you anymore. They can't hurt anyone anymore. Linda's voice was small, broken. Why did you risk everything for us? You didn't have to interfere. You could have let the investigation continue, built a stronger case. Because Master Chief Rebecca Davidson taught me that some things matter more than perfect evidence. Protecting people who can't protect themselves is one of those things. She died because she chose protection over procedure. I learned from her mistakes, but I also learned from her courage. Jessica spoke through tears. Who was Master Chief Davidson? The first female Navy SEAL, my mentor, my friend. She tried to stop abuse like this 3 years ago. The institution silenced her, ordered her to stand down. She couldn't live with that choice, so she didn't. The clearing filled with federal agents, FBI, local sheriffs, military police. They swarmed the area, securing evidence, separating witnesses, reading rights to the 3 men still zip-tied on the ground. An FBI agent approached Sarah, showed credentials. Commander Brennan, Special Agent Victoria Chen, we need your statement. You'll get everything. But first I need medical attention for Linda Martinez and Jessica Parks. They're the victims here. They're the priorities. Already arranged. EMTs are standing by. Sarah watched paramedics lead Linda and Jessica away, watched federal agents process the crime scene, watched her 3-day investigation culminate in arrests and evidence collection and justice finally arriving. Captain Morrison appeared through the trees, crossed the clearing to Sarah, studied her carefully. You went off script, Morrison said. I stopped an assault in progress. That's not off script. That's mandatory intervention. You compromised the investigation. I saved 2 women from torture. I'd make the same choice again. Morrison smiled. Good, because Hawk would have done exactly the same thing. She'd also be proud as hell that you got all 3 of them on assault charges with 12 witnesses. 3. What about Marcus? Marcus Chen is cooperating, already providing detailed testimony about the last 3 years. Names, dates, payments, everything. In exchange for immunity and witness protection. Sarah nodded slowly. He made the right choice. Late, but right. You made the right choice too. Risky, but right. David Park approached hesitantly. Commander Brennan, can I ask you something? Sure. When you took down Connor, that was the most controlled violence I've ever seen. Where'd you learn to fight like that? Sarah smiled. YouTube videos. Lots and lots of YouTube videos. Despite everything, David laughed. Right, YouTube. That's your story. That's my story. He extended his hand. Sarah shook it. Thank you for showing us what real courage looks like, what real strength looks like. I thought I knew. I was wrong. Over the next 3 hours, Sarah gave her statement, provided evidence, walked federal agents through every detail of the investigation. The mud assault, the harassment, the equipment shed, the torture implements. Linda's DNA evidence, tonight's intervention. When she finally finished, it was past midnight. She sat on a fallen log at the edge of the clearing, exhaustion hitting her like a wave. Morrison sat beside her. How are the ribs? Broken. Probably need surgery. The knee, torn meniscus. Definitely needs surgery. You just conducted a federal investigation with broken ribs and a torn meniscus. You're either incredibly tough or incredibly stupid. Hawk used to say the same thing, never could decide which. Morrison pulled something from her pocket, a small leather case, opened it carefully. Inside was a photograph. Master Chief Rebecca Davidson in dress blues, smiling, young, full of hope and determination. I went to her quarters after she died, Morrison said quietly. Found this on her desk. She'd written something on the back. She turned the photograph over. In Rebecca's handwriting, for Sarah. When you forget why the fight matters, remember who you're fighting for. The next generation deserves better than we got. Make sure they get it. That's the mission. That's everything. Hawk. Sarah's vision blurred. She knew. Even then she knew what she was asking me to do. She knew you'd keep the promise. She knew you'd fight the fight she couldn't finish. And Sarah, you did. You kept every promise. You ended them. You protected the next generation. Mission accomplished. Sarah took the photograph, held it carefully. The mission's not done yet. Thornton's still free. The investigation's ongoing. There are 7 other women who need justice. FBI's already tracking them down, offering immunity from NDA penalties. 3 have already agreed to testify. By tomorrow, we'll have all 7. Combined with tonight's evidence, Thornton's finished. Good, because Hawk deserves to see the whole system burn, not just the instructors, the institution that protected them. Morrison stood. Get some rest. Tomorrow you're going to the hospital for surgery. Both surgeries. That's not optional. After I testify. Sarah. After I testify. The investigation isn't complete until every statement is recorded. Every piece of evidence is documented. Every victim has their say. I can survive another 12 hours. Then I'll get fixed. Morrison shook her head. Stubborn. Just like Hawk. She taught me well. Sarah sat alone in the darkness holding the photograph of her mentor. Around her, federal agents worked. Trainees gave statements. Evidence was collected and cataloged and preserved for trials that would determine whether justice actually existed or if it was just a word people used to feel better about institutional failure. She thought about the mud, about being thrown face first into Virginia clay by men who thought age meant weakness, who thought women meant targets, who thought power meant the right to abuse. They'd learned different, They'd learned that mud doesn't break warriors. It reveals them, makes them, forges them into something harder than the people who tried to destroy them. Linda and Jessica were safe now, protected, free from the fear that had ruled their lives for months. 7 other women would get justice, would get closure, would get the acknowledgement that what happened to them mattered. And Admiral Richard Thornton would learn that connections and money and institutional power meant nothing when evidence was overwhelming and witnesses were brave and investigators refused to quit. Master Chief Rebecca Davidson died believing she'd failed. Sarah had just proved she was wrong. The promise was kept. The mission was complete. The next generation would get better than they got. That's what mattered. That's everything. The hospital room smelled like antiseptic and broken promises. Sarah lay in the bed, chest wrapped tight after rib surgery, knee immobilized in a brace that ran from ankle to thigh. Pain medication made the edges of reality blur, but her mind stayed sharp. Sharp enough to see Admiral Richard Thornton standing in the doorway like a ghost from a past she'd tried to leave behind. "Commander Brennan," he said. His voice carried the same authority it had 20 years ago in Iraq. Same command presence. Same certainty that his rank made him untouchable. We need to talk. No, we don't. Leave before I call security. Thornton stepped inside anyway, closed the door. I came alone. No lawyers, no witnesses, just two SEALs having a conversation. You stopped being a SEAL when you protected rapists to preserve profits. Get out. I protected a business, jobs, livelihoods. Do you know how many contractors depend on Blackstone for employment? 200 people, families, kids going to college, mortgages getting paid. Sarah's laugh was bitter. And how many women did you pay off to keep those mortgages current? 7 more. Thornton's jaw tightened. Those women signed agreements. They were compensated fairly for their experiences. You mean they were bribed to stay silent about being tortured? That's not compensation. That's obstruction of justice. I did what was necessary to prevent a few bad incidents from destroying everything I built. A few bad incidents? Sarah's voice rose despite the pain in her ribs. Your nephew sexually assaulted at least 3 women. Connor Hayes used tasers on trainees. Tyler Brooks stalked women in their sleep. That's not incidents, that's systematic abuse. And you knew about all of it. I knew some instructors were overzealous. I addressed it internally. You paid victims to shut up. That's not addressing it. That's enabling it. Thornton moved closer to the bed. You destroyed my company, my reputation, everything I spent 10 years building. For what? To save 2 women who couldn't handle tough training. Sarah sat up despite the pain, ignored the screaming in her ribs, met Thornton's eyes with the same cold certainty she'd used before pulling triggers in combat. I destroyed your company because it deserved destruction, because you built it on abuse and protected it with money and threats, because Master Chief Rebecca Davidson tried to stop people like you and died for it, because someone had to prove that institutional power doesn't beat evidence and courage and witnesses willing to tell the truth. Hawk was weak, couldn't handle the pressure of command. Sarah's hand moved faster than Thornton could track, grabbed his tie, pulled him down to eye level. Master Chief Davidson held off 40 Taliban fighters for 6 hours while wounded. She saved 37 Americans that day. What she couldn't survive was people like you, people who valued reputation over honor, people who sacrificed good operators to protect bad ones. Call her weak again. See what happens. Thornton pulled free, stepped back. For the first time, uncertainty crossed his face. You're threatening me. I'm promising you. If you ever say her name again, if you ever diminish what she sacrificed, I will make it my personal mission to ensure every single day you spend in federal prison is documented, publicized, turned into a cautionary tale about what happens when SEALs forget what the trident actually means. I haven't been convicted of anything. Yet. But you will be. FBI seized your financial records yesterday. Found 7 NDAs. $380,000 in hush money. Email correspondence between you and your nephew discussing how to handle complaints. Video footage from tonight showing him committing assault while you knew about the wilderness training protocols. You're done, Admiral. You just don't want to admit it. Thornton's composure cracked. I served 25 years. I earned my reputation. One investigation doesn't erase decades of service. Yes, it does. Because reputation isn't what you did in the past. It's what you do when no one's watching. What you do when it costs you something to do the right thing. You chose money over morality, profit over protection. That erases everything. You self-righteous. Thornton caught himself, took a breath. What do you want testimony against my nephew? I'll give it. Full cooperation, in exchange for immunity. You think I want your cooperation? I want you in prison. I want every SEAL who served with you to know what you became. I want your name next to the definition of institutional failure. That's what I want. Morrison put you up to this. She's had it out for me since the Davidson situation. Sarah's eyes went cold. The Davidson situation? You mean when you ordered her to cover up sexual assault? When you told her to stay silent while a female cadet was being destroyed? When you gave her the choice between her conscience and her career, and then acted surprised when she chose death over complicity? She made her choice. I didn't force her to do anything. You absolutely did. You put her in an impossible position, and when she tried to do the right thing, you destroyed her. That's on you. Her blood is on your hands. Thornton's face reddened. I followed regulations, chain of command, proper procedures. You followed your own ass-covering instincts. And now the regulations you hid behind are being used to bury you. Federal prosecutors are charging you with 18 counts: obstruction, witness tampering, racketeering, fraud, conspiracy. You're looking at 40 years minimum. At your age, that's life. I'll fight it. Best lawyers money can buy. Go ahead. Spend everything on legal fees. Drain your retirement. Mortgage your house. You'll still lose. Because the evidence is overwhelming and the witnesses are credible and the jury is going to see exactly what you are. A man who valued money over morality, who protected abusers to preserve profits, who destroyed good people to protect bad ones. Thornton moved to the door, stopped, looked back. You know what your problem is, Brennan. You think integrity is more important than pragmatism. You think doing the right thing matters more than getting results. That's why you'll never make flag rank. That's why people like me succeed and people like you just survive. Sarah smiled. It was the same smile she'd worn before 47 trigger squeezes. Admiral, I've got 47 confirmed kills, 2 Bronze Stars, 1 Silver Star, 28 years of service where I never had to bribe anyone, threaten anyone, or sacrifice anyone to sleep at night. You've got a failing company, federal charges, and a nephew who's going to testify against you to reduce his sentence. Tell me again who succeeded and who just survived. Thornton left without another word. The door closed behind him with a finality that sounded like justice. Sarah lay back in the hospital bed, let the pain medication pull her toward sleep. But sleep didn't come easy. Her mind kept replaying the conversation, kept seeing Thornton's face when she mentioned Hawk, kept wondering if destroying his life would bring back the mentor who died believing she'd failed. The door opened again. Morrison entered carrying coffee and a folder thick with documents. Saw Thornton leaving, Morrison said. What did he want? Immunity in exchange for testimony against his nephew. I told him no. Good, because we don't need his testimony. Marcus Chen is providing everything. Dates, names, financial transactions, conversations he witnessed. The man's got a photographic memory and 3 years of documentation. Why is Marcus cooperating so completely? Morrison sat in the visitor's chair. Guilt. He watched abuse happen for 3 years and did nothing. Now he's trying to redeem himself. Prosecutor thinks he's genuine. I'm not sure it matters. His testimony is gold, either way. What about the other women? The 7 who signed NDAs? 5 have agreed to testify. 2 are still considering, but 5 is enough. Combined with Linda Jessica Marcus and tonight's witnesses, we've got overwhelming evidence. Sarah closed her eyes. Tell me their names. The 5 who are testifying. Morrison opened the folder. Rachel Kim, 26. Quit 18 months ago after being sexually assaulted during wilderness training. Took $50,000 to stay quiet. Now she wants justice. Next. Maria Gonzalez, 24. Quit 2 years ago after Connor Hayes broke her wrist during combatives training. Claimed it was accidental. Medical records prove otherwise. Next. Jennifer Walsh, 27. Quit 14 months ago after Jake Daniels threatened to blacklist her from all security work if she reported harassment. She reported anyway. Blackstone's lawyer threatened to sue her for defamation. She settled for $40,000 and an NDA. Sarah's hands clenched into fists. Each name was evidence of institutional failure. Each story was proof that her investigation mattered. Keep going, she said. Ashley Martinez, no relation to Linda, 25. Quit 2 years ago after Tyler Brooks stalked her off campus. Filed police report. Local cops refused to investigate because Thornton sits on county commission. She took $30,000 to drop it. And the 5th? Morrison hesitated. Sarah, this one's going to hit hard. Tell me. Catherine Davidson, 23. Master Chief Hawk's niece. She enrolled at Blackstone 6 months after Hawk died. Said she wanted to honor her aunt's memory by succeeding in a tough program. Blackstone instructors knew who she was, targeted her specifically, broke her psychologically within 4 weeks. She took $80,000 and agreed never to speak about what happened. Sarah's vision blurred, not from pain medication, from rage so pure it felt like fire in her veins. They targeted Hawk's niece. They knew who she was and they broke her anyway. Worse, Jake Daniels specifically requested Catherine for his training group. Marcus heard him say it was payback for all the trouble her aunt caused the Navy. Said breaking her would be poetic justice. Sarah's hands shook. Where is Catherine now? Portland. Working tech support. Refuses to talk about Blackstone. Refuses to acknowledge what happened. But her therapist convinced her to testify. Said facing it might help her heal. I want to talk to her. Before trial, I want to tell her that her aunt didn't die for nothing, that what happened to her matters. Sarah, you're scheduled for physical therapy tomorrow, rehabilitation for at least 6 weeks. I don't care. Set up a call, video conference, something. Catherine deserves to know that someone's fighting for her, that someone's finishing what Hawk started. Morrison nodded slowly. I'll arrange it. But Sarah, you need to understand something. This case is going to trial in 3 months. You're going to testify. So is Linda. So is Jessica. So are all 5 women who broke their NDAs. The defense is going to tear into every one of you. They're going to question your credibility, your motives, your memory, your character. This is going to be brutal. I've survived brutal before. So have they. We'll survive this too. What if the jury doesn't convict? What if Thornton's lawyers create reasonable doubt? Sarah's voice went quiet, certain, the voice she'd used when promising things that mattered. Then we appeal, we retry, we pursue civil cases, we make sure their names are public. We make sure everyone knows what they did. Because conviction or not, the truth is out. The abuse is documented. The institution that protected them is destroyed. That's victory, even if the legal system fails. You sound like Hawk. She used to say truth mattered more than verdicts. Truth does matter more, because verdicts can be appealed. Truth can't. What happened to those women is truth. No jury can change that. Morrison stood to leave, stopped at the door. Catherine's call is scheduled for tomorrow at 1400 hours. Be gentle with her. She's fragile. I'll be honest with her. Sometimes that's more valuable than gentle. After Morrison left, Sarah lay alone in the darkness. Thought about Catherine Davidson, 23 years old, targeted because of who her aunt was. Broken because men with power decided revenge mattered more than decency. Master Chief Rebecca Davidson had died believing she'd failed, believing her fight hadn't mattered, believing the next generation would suffer what she'd suffered. But Catherine was testifying. 5 other women were testifying. Linda and Jessica were testifying. The institution that protected abusers was being destroyed brick by brick. Hawk's fight had mattered. Her death had sparked an investigation. Her legacy was justice finally arriving. Sarah's phone buzzed. Text from Jessica Parks. Commander, they're releasing me from observation tomorrow. Linda too. Can we visit you? We want to say thank you properly. Sarah typed back with her good hand. Hospital room 412. Come anytime, but don't thank me. You two are the brave ones. You survived. You testified. You fought back. That's courage. Jessica's response came immediately. You taught us how to fight back. Before you, we thought surviving meant staying quiet. You showed us surviving means speaking truth even when truth is dangerous. We're never going to forget that. Sarah set the phone down, closed her eyes, let exhaustion pull her towards sleep. But sleep brought dreams, dreams of Kandahar, of holding a sniper position while wounded, of counting kills to stay conscious, of promising herself that if she survived, if she made it home, she'd make the pain mean something. She'd kept that promise, every day for 28 years, every mission, every sacrifice, every time she'd chosen duty over comfort, and now, even in retirement, she was still keeping it. The next morning brought physical therapy. A sadist named Marcus, different Marcus Sarah, reminded herself who took evident pleasure in forcing her knee through range of motion exercises that felt like torture. "You're remarkably fit for 54, he observed. "Most people your age need months to reach this flexibility. You're already at 70%. I've been motivated before. Military background. Something like that. SEAL right, I can always tell. You guys move different. Even injured. Like you're ready to fight at any second." Sarah smiled. "That's not a bad way to live. It's a paranoid way to live. Paranoia is just preparedness that hasn't been vindicated yet." Marcus laughed. "That's definitely a SEAL talking. My brother was Navy. Said the same thing. Preparedness beats paranoia every time." At 1400 hours, Morrison set up the video call. Catherine Davidson's face appeared on the laptop screen. Young, haunted, eyes that had seen things that aged her beyond her years. "Commander Brennan," Catherine said quietly. "Captain Morrison said you wanted to talk. I wanted to tell you that I knew your aunt, that she was my mentor, that everything I accomplished in the Navy happened because she taught me how to be a SEAL." Catherine's eyes filled with tears. "No one talks about her anymore. It's like she never existed. Like her service didn't matter because of how she died. Her service mattered. Her death mattered. Everything she fought for mattered, including you. Me. She tried to stop institutional abuse 3 years before Blackstone targeted you. She fought the same battle we're fighting now. She didn't win, but her fight wasn't pointless. It led to this investigation, to these charges, to you and 5 other women getting justice." Justice. Catherine's laugh was bitter. Justice would be Aunt Becky still being alive. Justice would be me never enrolling at Blackstone. Justice would be not spending 2 years in therapy trying to remember how to feel safe. You're right. Real justice would be preventing the harm. But since we can't change the past, accountability is the next best thing. Making sure the people who hurt you face consequences. Making sure they can't hurt anyone else. Will it help? Will testifying actually make me feel better? Sarah considered lying, considered offering false comfort, decided Catherine deserved truth instead. I don't know. Testifying might re-traumatize you, might make things worse before they get better, but I know staying silent definitely doesn't help. I know letting them win definitely doesn't heal you. And I know your aunt would want you to fight. Not because fighting is easy, because fighting is how you take power back. Catherine was quiet for a long moment. What was she like, Aunt Becky, before everything broke her? Sarah smiled, remembered Hawk standing in surf zones, remembered her voice cutting through exhaustion and pain, remembered the certainty that if you could survive Hawk's expectations, you could survive anything. She was terrifying, brilliant, uncompromising. She expected perfection and accepted nothing less. She made me want to quit every single day of Buds, and every single day she gave me one reason to keep going. What reason? She'd look at me and say, show them. Just 2 words. Show them women belong. Show them we're capable. Show them they're wrong. That became my mantra. Every time I wanted to quit. Every time pain seemed unbearable. Show them. I've been showing them for 28 years, now it's your turn. I'm not strong like you, like Aunt Becky. Catherine, you survived Blackstone. You're still here, still functioning, still considering testifying even though it terrifies you. That's strength. Maybe not the kind Hollywood shows, but real strength, the kind that matters. What if I testify and they're not convicted? What if I go through all that trauma for nothing? Then we try again. Civil court, appeals, public exposure. We don't stop until everyone knows what they did, because the goal isn't just conviction, it's making sure your story is heard. Your truth is documented. Your pain is acknowledged. That matters regardless of verdicts. Catherine wiped her eyes. Will you be there at trial? Front row, every day. And when you're on that stand, when defense lawyers try to break you, you look at me. Remember that you're not alone. Remember that your aunt fought this battle, that I'm finishing it, that you're part of something bigger than individual trauma. You're part of ending a system that destroyed good people to protect bad ones. Okay, Catherine said. Okay, I'll testify. For Aunt Becky, for the other women, for me. That's all anyone can ask. Thank you, Catherine. Your aunt would be proud. After the call ended, Sarah sat alone in the hospital room. Thought about courage and trauma and the weight of promises made to dead heroes. Morrison returned an hour later with updates. Jake Daniels is negotiating a plea deal. His lawyer wants 15 years in exchange for testimony against his uncle. Tell the prosecutor no. Jake Daniels sexually assaulted 3 women. He gets no deals. Sarah, his testimony could guarantee Thornton's conviction. We already have that guarantee. Marcus, 5 victims, physical evidence. Jake doesn't get to trade testimony for reduced consequences. He committed crimes. He faces full punishment. Morrison sighed. You're not wrong, but prosecutors want the biggest fish. They might offer deals to get Thornton. Then they're thinking like bureaucrats instead of justice advocates. Every person who committed abuse faces full consequences. No exceptions. That's non-negotiable. I'll tell them, but they might not listen. Make them listen. Because if they offer Jake a deal, if they reduce Connor's charges, if they treat this like a normal case instead of systematic torture, then we haven't won anything. We've just proven the system still protects powerful people at the expense of victims. Morrison left to make the call. Sarah lay back, exhaustion pulling at her. Recovery from surgery was harder than she'd expected. Or maybe she was just 54 years old with broken parts that didn't heal as fast as they used to. Her phone rang. Unknown number. Brennan, she answered. Commander Brennan, this is Rachel Kim. Morrison gave me your number. I hope that's okay. Rachel, the first woman who'd agreed to testify. The one who'd been assaulted 18 months ago. Of course it's okay. What can I do for you? I wanted to thank you. For investigating. For stopping them. For making it possible for us to finally tell the truth without losing everything. You don't need to thank me. You're the one showing courage. Testifying is terrifying. You're doing it anyway. That's heroism. It doesn't feel heroic. It feels necessary. I've been carrying this for 18 months. Nightmares, anxiety, therapy sessions where I couldn't even say what happened because of the NDA. Now I can finally speak. That's not heroism. That's relief. Sarah understood. Speaking truth after forced silence was oxygen after drowning. How are you holding up? Some days better than others. Yesterday was bad. Today's manageable. Tomorrow might be worse again. But I'm here. I'm fighting. That's something. That's everything. Rachel, can I ask you something? What do you need from this trial? What would make testifying worth the trauma? Rachel was quiet for a moment. I need them to acknowledge what they did. Not just legally, personally. I need Jake Daniels to look at me and admit he hurt me. I need Connor Hayes to say out loud that what he did was assault. I need Admiral Thornton to stop hiding behind lawyers and institutions and just say, I was wrong. I protected abusers. I destroyed victims to preserve profits. If they do that, if they actually acknowledge truth, then testifying is worth it. What if they don't? What if they maintain innocence throughout? Then I need the jury to call them liars. I need 12 people who don't know me, who don't have any reason to believe me, to hear my story and say, we believe you. What happened to you was wrong, and the people who did it deserve punishment. That's what I need. Validation, acknowledgement, belief. Sarah's throat tightened. You'll get it. I promise you. Your story will be heard. Your truth will be validated. And those men will face consequences. How can you promise that you don't control juries? No, but I control evidence. And the evidence is so overwhelming that no reasonable jury can ignore it. Video footage, DNA evidence, financial records, witness testimony from 12 people. Your story corroborated by 5 other women with identical experiences. Rachel, they're going to believe you. Not because I'm making promises, because truth is undeniable when it's documented this thoroughly. Rachel's voice broke. I hope you're right. Because if I go through this and they walk free, I don't think I'll survive it. Not psychologically. Then we make sure they don't walk free. We make sure every piece of evidence is presented, every witness is prepared, Every argument is countered. We don't leave anything to chance. Thank you, Commander, for caring, for fighting, for making this possible. Thank you for surviving, for speaking up, for refusing to let them win. After Rachel hung up, Sarah stared at the ceiling, thought about promises and evidence and the terrible weight of other people's hope. She'd promised Rachel justice, promised Catherine validation, promised Jessica and Linda safety, promised Hawk's memory that her death would mean something. Those promises were heavy, heavier than combat gear, heavier than 47 kills, heavier than 28 years of service. But promises to victims mattered more than personal comfort. So Sarah would carry the weight, would testify, would fight, would ensure that every person who'd trusted her with their trauma got the justice they deserved. Because that's what SEALs did. They carried weight others couldn't. They fought battles others wouldn't. They kept promises even when keeping them required sacrifice. Master Chief Rebecca Davidson had taught her that, and Sarah Brennan had never forgotten. 3 months of physical therapy had rebuilt Sarah's knee and healed her ribs, but nothing prepared her for walking into the federal courthouse on the first day of trial. The building loomed like judgment itself, and inside the weight of 8 women's trauma sat heavy on her shoulders. Linda and Jessica waited in the witness room, holding hands like soldiers before battle. Rachel Kim paced near the window. Catherine Davidson sat alone in the corner, eyes distant. Maria Gonzalez checked her phone obsessively. The other 3 victims, Jennifer, Ashley, and Carmen, who'd come forward during discovery, formed their own small circle of mutual support. Sarah approached Catherine first. "How are you holding up?" "I threw up twice this morning. Does that answer your question?" "That's normal. Fear is just your body preparing for action. Channel it into your testimony." Catherine looked up. "What if I freeze? What if I get on that stand and can't speak?" "Then you look at me. I'll be in the front row. When you see me, remember your aunt. Remember she died fighting this battle. Remember you're finishing what she started. That'll give you words." Morrison entered with the prosecutor, a woman named Sarah Chen, who'd built her reputation destroying white-collar criminals. "We're starting in 20 minutes. Sarah Brennan testifies first, then Linda Martinez, then Jessica Parks. We're establishing the pattern early." "What about Thornton's defense strategy?" Sarah asked. "They're going with institutional ignorance, claiming he didn't know about the abuse, that his nephew operated independently, that the NDAs were standard business practice, not hush money. That's not going to work. Marcus Chen's testimony proves Thornton knew everything. Which is why defense is going to destroy Marcus's credibility, paint him as a disgruntled employee seeking revenge, a liar trying to reduce his own sentence." Sarah's jaw tightened. "Marcus risked everything to testify. They can't just... They can and they will. That's their job. Our job is making sure the jury sees through it." Chen checked her watch. "Brennan, you ready?" "I've been ready since they threw me in the mud 3 months ago." The courtroom was packed. Media in the back rows. Victims' families on the left. Admiral Thornton sat at the defense table in full uniform, medals gleaming, playing the decorated veteran card for all it was worth. Jake Daniels, Connor Hayes, and Tyler Brooks sat at a separate defense table, their lawyers forming a wall between them and justice. Sarah took the stand, raised her right hand, swore to tell the truth, met Thornton's eyes and saw nothing but calculation. Prosecutor Chen began gently. "Commander Brennan, please state your background for the jury." 28 years Navy, retired SEAL, 2 Bronze Stars, 1 Silver Star, 47 confirmed kills across 7 combat theaters. "And why did you enroll at Blackstone Maritime Security?" "To investigate allegations of systematic abuse against female trainees. Naval Special Warfare Command received an anonymous email detailing torture, harassment, and sexual assault. I went undercover to document it." "What did you find?" Sarah took a breath. Let the memories flow. "I found exactly what the email described. Within 3 days, I was physically assaulted by instructors, thrown face first into mud, subjected to excessive force during training, forced to endure harassment designed to make me quit. But I didn't quit. I documented everything. Can you describe the wilderness training incident? Fourth night, the instructors separated female trainees for what they called enhanced stress simulation, actually torture. Linda Martinez and another trainee were zip-tied to chairs, blindfolded, subjected to taser threats and unwanted physical contact. When I witnessed Connor Hayes beginning to sexually assault Linda, I intervened. How did you intervene? I identified myself as a federal investigator. When they refused to comply, when Jake Daniels pulled a weapon, I used SEAL combatives training to neutralize all three attackers. Marcus Chen assisted in securing them until federal agents arrived. The defense attorney, a man named Richard Cross, stood for cross-examination. Commander Brennan, you claim you witnessed assault, but you also claim you were injured. Broken ribs, torn meniscus, concussion. How reliable is your memory of events? Combat-trained operators function through injury regularly. My memory is exact. You're 54 years old. Your vision at night, your reaction time, your cognitive function all diminished by age and injury. Isn't it possible you misinterpreted a training exercise? Sarah's voice went cold. I've conducted night operations in hostile territory for 28 years. I've made life and death decisions in fractions of seconds while under fire. I didn't misinterpret anything. I witnessed assault. I documented it. And 12 other trainees corroborated every detail. These 12 trainees, all of whom were facing failure in the program, correct. All of whom had motivation to fabricate allegations. All of whom had phones recording video. Video that showed zip ties, tasers, and Connor Hayes with his hands on a blindfolded, restrained woman. That's not fabrication. That's evidence. Cross pivoted. You entered this program under false pretenses, lied about your identity, concealed your military background, essentially conducted an illegal investigation. I conducted a lawful investigation authorized by Naval Special Warfare Command. My cover identity was necessary to document crimes that had been hidden through institutional protection. So you admit you lied. I used an undercover identity to investigate crimes. That's standard investigative procedure. What's not standard is paying women to stay silent about sexual assault. What's not standard is torture disguised as training. What's not standard is an admiral protecting his nephew instead of protecting victims. Cross's face reddened. Your Honor, the witness is editorializing. Sustained, the judge said. Commander, stick to what you witnessed. I witnessed systematic abuse. I witnessed institutional protection of abusers. I witnessed Admiral Thornton's nephew commit assault while knowing his uncle would protect him from consequences. That's what I witnessed. The prosecutor called Linda Martinez next. She walked to the stand like someone approaching an execution. Her voice shook when she swore in. Chen was gentle. Miss Martinez, please tell the jury what happened to you at Blackstone. Linda's hands twisted together. They separated the women from the men during wilderness training, took us to a different location, said it was prisoner simulation. They zip-tied our hands behind our backs, blindfolded us. Then Connor Hayes. Her voice broke. Then he put his hands on me. Not quite sexual assault, but close enough that I understood the threat. Close enough that I knew what would happen if I didn't comply with whatever they wanted. What did they want? They wanted me to break, to cry, to beg, to prove that women couldn't handle tough training, so they could justify their belief that we don't belong in tactical operations. Did you comply? I tried to resist, for maybe an hour. Then Connor got more aggressive, touched me in ways that weren't training, said things that weren't instruction, and I broke, started crying, started begging them to stop. That's when they knew they'd won. What happened after that? They released me, drove me back to base. The next morning, a lawyer showed up with an NDA and a check for $50,000. Said if I signed, I could leave quietly. If I didn't sign, they'd make sure I never worked in security again. They'd blacklist me, destroy my career. So I signed. Why are you testifying now you violated the NDA? Linda lifted her chin, met Thornton's eyes. Because Commander Brennan taught me that some things are more important than money, more important than careers, Justice is one of those things. Truth is one of those things. Making sure they can't hurt anyone else is one of those things. Cross stood for cross-examination. Miss Martinez, you took $50,000 to stay silent about allegations you're now claiming are true. That sounds like fraud. I was coerced into signing an NDA to cover up crimes. That NDA is void. Or you fabricated allegations to get money, and now you're fabricating testimony to avoid returning it. I'm not fabricating anything. I have bruises and photographs. I have the zip tie they used on me with my DNA on it. I have Connor Hayes' fingerprints on my skin from where he touched me. That's not fabrication, that's evidence. Evidence that could be staged, manipulated, created after the fact. Linda's eyes filled with tears. Why would I do that? Why would I destroy my own life, violate an NDA, face a lawsuit, expose myself to public scrutiny and harassment just to fabricate allegations against people I barely know? For attention, for money, for revenge. I don't want attention. I don't want money. I want justice. I want them to acknowledge what they did. I want them to stop hurting people. That's all I want. Jessica Parks testified next, then Rachel Kim, then Catherine Davidson. One by one, 8 women told identical stories. Harassment that escalated to assault. Intimidation disguised as training. NDAs bought with threats and money. By the 4th day, the pattern was undeniable. Marcus Chen took the stand on day 5. He looked 10 years older than when Sarah had last seen him. The weight of testimony had carved lines into his face. Chen walked him through 3 years of witnessed abuse. The financial records he'd kept. The conversations he'd overheard between Jake Daniels and Admiral Thornton where they discussed how to handle complaints. The email correspondence proving Thornton knew about the abuse and actively covered it up. Why didn't you report any of this? Prosecutor Chen asked. Because I was afraid. Afraid of losing my job. Afraid Admiral Thornton would destroy my career like he destroyed the women who complained. Afraid that staying silent was safer than speaking truth to power. What changed? Commander Brennan. She showed me that silence is complicity. That watching abuse makes you responsible for it. That some things matter more than personal safety. I should have spoken up 3 years ago. I didn't. That's on me. But I'm speaking up now. Better late than never. Cross attacked immediately. Mr. Chen, you're testifying under a plea agreement, correct? Reduced sentence in exchange for cooperation. Yes. So you have motivation to lie. To tell prosecutors what they want to hear. I have motivation to tell the truth. Because living with what I witnessed, staying silent about it, that was destroying me. This testimony isn't about reducing my sentence. It's about finally doing the right thing. How convenient that the right thing also benefits you legally. Nothing about this is convenient. I'm admitting I was complicit in abuse. I'm acknowledging I failed 8 women who needed protection. That's not convenient. That's accountability. The defense called character witnesses for Thornton. Former SEALs who praised his service. Military colleagues who described him as honorable. Contractors who depended on Blackstone for employment. But none of them could explain the financial records, the NDAs, the email correspondence, the video footage from the night Sarah intervened. On day 9, Thornton himself took the stand, dressed in service khakis, ribbons gleaming, playing the decorated veteran one last time. His lawyer led him through his service record, 25 years, multiple deployments, commendations, a career built on honor and sacrifice. Admiral Thornton, did you know your instructors were abusing trainees? Absolutely not. I ran Blackstone from a distance, trusted my nephew to handle day-to-day operations. If I'd known about any misconduct, I would have stopped it immediately. What about the NDAs, the settlements? Standard business practice. Trainees sometimes have complaints about tough training. We settled to avoid costly litigation. That's not a cover-up. That's efficient business management. Did you ever order anyone to cover up abuse? Never. My entire career has been about protecting people. The accusation that I'd protect abusers is offensive and false. Prosecutor Chen stood for cross-examination. She held up a printed email. Admiral Thornton, Do you recognize this email? I sent hundreds of emails. I can't recall every one. This one's dated 14 months ago, from you to your nephew Jake. Subject line, Martinez complaint. Let me read it to you. Jake handled the Martinez situation quietly. Offer standard settlement. Make sure she signs NDA with teeth. We can't have another woman going public like the Kim incident. Protect the company at all costs. Does that refresh your memory? Thornton's face remained impassive. That email is about protecting the company's reputation, not covering up abuse. What Martinez situation were you referring to? I don't recall specifically. Linda Martinez testified that she was sexually assaulted during wilderness training 14 months ago. She was paid $50,000 to stay silent. That's the Martinez situation you were handling quietly, correct? I was handling a complaint. I didn't know the details. You didn't ask. Your nephew tells you there's a situation that needs quiet handling, and you just authorize payment without investigating. I trusted Jake to manage trainee complaints appropriately. Chen held up another document. Here's the check. $50,000, signed by you. Memo line, settlement and NDA compliance. You personally paid Linda Martinez to stay quiet about sexual assault. How is that not a cover-up? It's a settlement. That's different from a cover-up. Did you investigate Linda's allegations before paying her? Jake investigated. Your nephew investigated allegations against himself, and you saw no conflict of interest. Thornton shifted in his seat. I trusted his judgment. Did you trust his judgment when he was dishonorably discharged from Army Ranger training, when psychological evaluation flagged him for aggression toward women, when he failed selection twice before you hired him at Blackstone despite his unsuitable background? Objection, defense attorney Cross shouted. Relevance. Goes to credibility and judgment, Your Honor. Chen countered. The Admiral claims he trusted Jake Daniels. The jury deserves to know Jake's background. Overruled. Answer the question, Admiral. Thornton's composure cracked slightly. Jake had problems. I thought giving him structure responsibility would help him mature. So you hired someone who failed psychological evaluation for aggression toward women to train women. That seems like catastrophically poor judgment. In hindsight, perhaps. In hindsight, Admiral, 8 women were assaulted. 3 were sexually assaulted. One was Master Chief Rebecca Davidson's niece, targeted specifically because of who her aunt was. This isn't hindsight. This is deliberate institutional failure, and you were the institution. Thornton's face reddened. I did the best I could with the information I had. The information you had included complaint after complaint, payment after payment, NDA after NDA. At what point did you consider that maybe the problem wasn't sensitive women? Maybe the problem was abusive instructors? I considered it. And did what? Nothing. You did nothing except pay women to stay silent. That's not consideration. That's complicity. Chen turned to the jury. No further questions. Closing arguments came on day 12. Defense argued institutional ignorance, prosecutorial overreach. A decorated veteran destroyed by overzealous investigation and opportunistic victims. Prosecutor Chen stood before the jury and held up a photograph. Linda Martinez's bruised arms. This is what institutional ignorance looks like. This is what happens when people in power value reputation over protection. Admiral Thornton wants you to believe he didn't know, but the evidence proves he knew everything. He paid 8 women to stay silent. He protected abusive instructors because they were family. He destroyed careers to preserve profits. That's not ignorance, that's choice. Bad choice, criminal choice, and it's time he faced consequences. The jury deliberated for 6 hours. Sarah sat in the hallway with the 8 women. No one spoke. Words seemed inadequate for the weight of waiting. Finally, the bailiff called them back. Juries reached a verdict. They filed into the courtroom. Thornton stood at the defense table rigid as a statue. Jake Connor and Tyler looked pale, terrified. The jury foreman stood. On the charge of obstruction of justice, we find the defendant, Richard Thornton, guilty. One by one, the verdicts came. 18 counts. 18 guilty verdicts. Jake Daniels guilty on all counts. 23 years federal prison. Connor Hayes guilty on all counts, 18 years federal prison. Tyler Brooks guilty on 7 counts, 12 years federal prison. Admiral Richard Thornton guilty on all counts, 42 years federal prison. The courtroom erupted, victims crying, media rushing to file stories, defense attorneys shouting objections. Sarah sat perfectly still, felt Linda's hand grip hers, felt Jessica collapse into tears, felt the weight of 3 months finally lifting. They'd won. Justice had arrived. Imperfect, incomplete, but arrived nonetheless. Outside the courthouse, media swarmed. Sarah stood at the microphone with the 8 women flanking her. Today, 8 women got justice, Sarah began, but this isn't just their victory. It's victory for every person who's been told their trauma doesn't matter, every person who's been paid to stay silent, every person who's been told that powerful people are untouchable. Today, we proved they're wrong. Powerful people face consequences when evidence is overwhelming and witnesses are brave and investigators refuse to quit. A reporter shouted a question. Commander Brennan, do you think this verdict changes military culture? It's a start, but culture doesn't change with one verdict. Culture changes when institutions value protection over reputation, when leaders believe victims instead of protecting abusers, when people like Admiral Thornton are held accountable before they destroy 8 women's lives. That's the work that remains. What's next for you? Sarah looked at Linda and Jessica, at Rachel and Catherine and the others. I'm starting a foundation named after Master Chief Rebecca Davidson. We'll provide legal support for military and contractor abuse victims. Make sure what happened here, the investigation, the documentation, the evidence gathering becomes standard practice. Make sure the next victim doesn't wait 3 years for justice. Make sure silence stops being the price of survival. Catherine stepped forward, took the microphone. Her voice shook but held. My aunt died believing she failed. Believing her fight didn't matter. Today proved she was wrong. Her fight started something that ended Admiral Thornton's career and protected future victims. That's legacy. That's what matters. And I'm going to spend the rest of my life continuing her work. That's my promise. The press conference ended. The 8 women formed a circle in the courthouse plaza, held hands, said nothing, just stood together and shared victory and shared trauma and shared relief. Sarah's phone rang. Morrison's name appeared. Captain, you did it, Sarah. You kept every promise. Hawk would be so proud. We did it. All of us. The victims. Marcus. David Park and the witnesses. This wasn't one person. This was people choosing courage over comfort. What's next? Arlington, I have a promise to keep. 3 days later, Sarah stood at Master Chief Rebecca Davidson's grave. The foundation paperwork was filed. The 8 women had agreed to serve on the board. Catherine would be executive director. Linda would handle victim outreach. Jessica would manage legal coordination. Sarah placed her seal trident on the headstone, the one she'd earned 27 years ago because Hawk showed her how. I kept the promise, Sarah said quietly. Stopped the abuse, destroyed the institution protecting it. 8 women got justice. Your niece is healing. The next generation won't face what we faced. That's your legacy, Hawk. Not how you died, what your death inspired. The cemetery was quiet. Sarah stood alone with her memories and her grief and her certainty that some fights were worth everything they cost. A voice spoke behind her. Commander Brennan. Sarah turned. A young woman, maybe 25, wearing Navy working uniform, trident on her chest. I'm Lieutenant Amanda Price, SEAL Team 3. I wanted to thank you. For what? For proving we belong. For fighting when it would have been easier to quit. For showing everyone that age doesn't mean weak. That women don't mean liability. That SEALs can be any gender, any age, as long as they're willing to do the work. Sarah studied the young SEAL, saw herself 27 years ago, saw Hawk's legacy continuing, saw the promise kept in flesh and blood and determination. You don't owe me thanks. You earned that trident yourself. But I earned it in a Navy that's different because of what you did, because of what Master Chief Davidson did. We're standing on your shoulders, all of us. Then stand tall. Show them what SEALs look like. All kinds of SEALs. That's how you honor her. That's how you honor every person who fought so you could serve. Amanda saluted. Sarah returned it. The young SEAL walked away, leaving Sarah alone again with the dead and the promises and the certainty that legacy wasn't what you accomplished. It was what you inspired others to accomplish after you were gone. 6 months later, the Rebecca Davidson Foundation had processed 43 cases of military and contractor abuse, won 37 of them. The 8 women from Blackstone testified at congressional hearings. New legislation passed requiring independent investigation of contractor abuse allegations. NDAs were banned in cases involving assault or harassment. Sarah testified at military academies, trained investigators in evidence gathering, taught victims how to document abuse, built networks of lawyers and advocates and survivors who refused to let institutional power silence truth. On the 1-year anniversary of the verdict, she returned to Blackstone's former training facility. The property had been sold, the buildings demolished, but the land remained, and Sarah walked the grounds where she'd been thrown in mud, where she'd documented abuse, where she'd finally intervened to stop torture. Linda and Jessica joined her. They stood together in the clearing where everything had changed. They thought mud would break us, Linda said quietly. They were wrong, Jessica added. Sarah smiled, put her arms around both women. Mud doesn't break warriors. It reveals them, makes them, forges them into something stronger than the people who tried to destroy them. That's what we are, what we'll always be. Warriors who refuse to stay down. They stood there as the sun set, 3 women who'd survived institutional abuse and fought back and won. 3 women who'd taken trauma and transformed it into justice. 3 women who'd proven that power and money and connections meant nothing when evidence was overwhelming and courage was contagious and truth was undeniable. Master Chief Rebecca Davidson died believing she'd failed. But her death had sparked an investigation. Her legacy lived in 8 women who got justice. Her promise lived in Sarah Brennan, who'd kept every word. The mud was long washed away. The bruises healed. The trauma remained, but no longer ruled. What remained permanent was the change, the reform. The proof that institutions could be held accountable, that abusers could be stopped, that victims could become victors when someone refused to let their pain be meaningless. They'd thrown Sarah in the mud 3 months ago, thinking age meant weakness, thinking women meant targets, thinking power meant immunity. They'd learned different. They'd learned that some women carry 28 years of combat experience, that some women have 47 confirmed kills and muscle memory that makes arrogance look like suicide, that some women refuse to quit even when quitting seems rational. They'd learned that mud doesn't break SEALs. It reveals them. And once revealed, once committed to mission, once determined to keep promises made to dead heroes, nothing stops them. Not age, not injury, not institutional power, not threats or intimidation or violence. Nothing stops a warrior who's fighting for something bigger than herself, who's carrying the weight of promises and legacy and determination that the next generation gets better than she got. That's what Sarah Brennan was. That's what Linda Martinez and Jessica Parks became. That's what the 8 women who testified represented. Warriors forged in mud, tested by fire, proven through courage, victorious through refusing to accept that power beats truth. Admiral Richard Thornton learned that lesson from a federal prison cell where he'd spend the rest of his life. Jake Daniels learned it. Connor Hayes learned it. Tyler Brooks learned it. And somewhere in a grave at Arlington, Master Chief Rebecca Davidson rested knowing her fight hadn't been pointless. Her death had meant something. Her legacy continued through people she'd never met, but whose courage she'd inspired. The promise was kept. The mission was complete. Justice had arrived, imperfect but real, delayed but undeniable, costly but worth every sacrifice it required. Sarah Brennan walked away from that cleared training ground for the last time, walked toward the future and the foundation and the next fight, because there was always a next fight, always another victim who needed someone to stand with them, always another institution that needed to learn. That power doesn't beat truth when truth is documented and witnesses are brave and investigators refuse to quit. They'd thrown her in the mud thinking it would end her. Instead, it began everything. The investigation, the evidence, the trial, the verdict, the reform, the legacy. The proof that one person refusing to quit could change systems designed to protect abusers and silence victims. Mud doesn't break warriors. It makes them. And Master Chief Rebecca Davidson had made Sarah Brennan into exactly the warrior this fight required. Persistent, uncompromising, unwilling to accept that anyone's trauma was meaningless, or anyone's abuse was acceptable, or anyone's institutional power was more important than protecting people who couldn't protect themselves. That was the lesson. That was the legacy. That was the promise kept, and the mission completed, and the truth proven beyond any reasonable doubt. Some fights are worth everything they cost. This one was. Every broken rib, every torn ligament, every moment of pain was worth 8 women getting justice, and countless future victims getting protection, and one dead hero finally getting vindication. Sarah Brennan had kept her promise. The warriors forged in mud had won, and the system that tried to break them learned the hardest lesson of all. Underestimating quiet competence is the last mistake arrogant people make before losing everything that matters.